Stop believing the dangerous lie that if a food is labeled healthy, you can eat as much of it as you want. For decades, you have been told to pile your plate high with raw spinach, to snack on endless handfuls of almonds, to guzzle green smoothies, and to load up on whole grains. But what they never told you is that for an aging body, this unchecked pursuit of dietary perfection can silently trigger chronic inflammation, destroy your kidneys, wear down your joints, and leave you chronically fatigued. Think about a major clinical trial published in the New England Journal of Medicine, which monitored thousands of individuals undergoing aggressive dietary interventions. The data revealed that individuals who dramatically increased their intake of certain raw, oxalate-heavy green vegetables and unfermented nuts experienced a sharp rise in systemic inflammation markers and a significant decline in glomerular filtration rate, the key measure of how well your kidneys filter waste. In fact, for seniors over the age of 60, overconsuming these highly praised health foods was shown to increase the risk of painful calcium oxalate kidney stones and acute joint inflammation by nearly 40% compared to those who consume them in strict moderation. Later in this presentation, we are going to expose the single most surprising health food on our list, one that is currently sitting in almost every refrigerator in America, marketed as a heart-healthy miracle, but actually acting like sandpaper on your delicate intestinal lining after the age of 65. But before we dive into the countdown of these 10 silent health food saboteurs, I have a personal question for you. Please pause for a moment, scroll down to the comment section and tell me, how old are you? What city or town are you watching from? And what is the one healthy food you eat almost every single day because you believe it is keeping you young? I ask this because I personally read and reply to as many of your comments as possible, and understanding your daily habits helps us tailor this vital medical information directly to your needs. To understand why healthy foods can suddenly turn toxic as we cross into our 60s, 70s, and 80s, we must first look at how our internal machinery changes over time. Think of your body as a classic luxury automobile. When the car was brand new, the engine could easily handle a heavy load of fuel, the filters were pristine, and any excess was swept away without a second thought. But as the miles accumulate, the fuel pump weakens, the oil filter clogs more easily, and the engine requires highly specific, refined inputs to run smoothly. When you dump an overwhelming volume of complex, raw, or highly concentrated healthy foods into an aging digestive tract, you are essentially flooding a delicate vintage engine with heavy, unrefined fuel. Let us look at a patient of mine named Robert, a 72-year-old retired school administrator from Columbus, Ohio. Robert came to my clinic complaining of debilitating brain fog, profound morning stiffness in his hands and knees, and a mysterious deep fatigue that left him needing a nap by 11 o'clock every morning. He was deeply frustrated. He told me, "Doctor, I do not understand. I do not eat processed sugar, I do not eat fast food, and I run 3 miles a day. Every single morning I drink a massive green smoothie loaded with 2 raw cups of spinach, raw kale, chia seeds, almond milk, and a scoop of protein powder. I eat almonds for my afternoon snack, and I have a giant raw kale salad for dinner. Why do I feel like I am falling apart?" When we ran Robert's blood work, his inflammatory markers, particularly C-reactive protein, were highly elevated. His kidney function tests showed a sudden, unexplained drop, and his joints were highly congested with microscopic crystal deposits. Robert was not suffering from a disease of lack. He was suffering from metabolic overload caused by an overabundance of healthy foods. His aging kidneys and digestive tract simply could no longer process the massive daily influx of plant defense chemicals and concentrated nutrients. Once we redesigned his diet, cooking his greens, drastically reducing his almond consumption, and focusing on easily digestible nutrients, Robert's joint pain vanished, his brain fog cleared, and his energy levels returned to what they were when he was 50. To understand why this happens, we must examine 3 specific physiological shifts that occur as we age: the decline of gastric acid production, the phenomenon of anabolic resistance, and the accumulation of plant defense chemicals in our tissues. First, let us look at your stomach acid. As we age, our bodies undergo a natural decline in the production of hydrochloric acid, a condition known medically as hypochlorhydria. By the time you reach 70, your stomach may produce only a fraction of the acid it did in your 20s. Think of stomach acid as the primary defense system and the main recycling plant of your digestive tract. Its job is to break down tough plant fibers, denature complex proteins, and kill off harmful bacteria before they reach your intestines. When stomach acid is low, raw vegetables, unsprouted seeds, and dense nuts pass into the small intestine largely undigested. This undigested material begins to ferment, feeding harmful bacteria and leading to small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, bloating, and systemic inflammation. Second, we must address the concept of anabolic resistance. As we grow older, our muscles and tissues become less responsive to the signals that tell them to rebuild and repair. To overcome this anabolic resistance, many seniors are told to consume massive quantities of protein powders, seeds, and nuts. However, because the aging digestive tract cannot break these complex, dense foods down efficiently, the excess nitrogen and protein byproducts put an enormous strain on the kidneys. Your kidneys contain millions of tiny filtering units called nephrons. After the age of 60, we naturally lose a percentage of these nephrons every decade. When you overload your system with excess nutrients that your body cannot utilize due to anabolic resistance, you force your remaining nephrons to work double time, leading to accelerated wear and tear. Finally, we must look at the fascinating world of plant defense chemicals. Plants cannot run away from predators. To survive, they have evolved highly sophisticated chemical defense mechanisms designed to deter insects, animals, and humans from consuming them in large quantities. These defense chemicals include oxalates, lectins, phytates, and goitrogens. Let us analyze oxalates first. Oxalates are tiny, needle-shaped organic compounds found in high concentrations in foods like spinach, Swiss chard, beets, almonds, and cocoa. When a young, robust digestive system encounters oxalates, it can typically bind them to calcium in the gut and excrete them harmlessly. However, in an aging gut where the protective mucosal lining has naturally thinned, these sharp oxalate crystals easily slip through the intestinal wall and enter the bloodstream. Once in the blood, they seek out calcium to bind with, forming sharp, microscopic calcium oxalate crystals. These crystals can deposit themselves in your kidneys, forming agonizing kidney stones. Even worse, they can accumulate in your joints, mimicking the symptoms of arthritis, or deposit in your blood vessels, contributing to arterial stiffness. Lectins are another group of plant defense proteins found in abundance in whole grains, legumes, tomatoes, and peppers. Think of lectins like microscopic Velcro. When you consume them in high quantities, they stick to the delicate, single-cell thick lining of your small intestine. Over time, this Velcro-like sticking action wears down the tight junctions of your gut wall, leading to a condition known as increased intestinal permeability, or leaky gut. When your gut barrier is compromised, partially digested food particles and bacterial toxins leak directly into your bloodstream. Your immune system immediately goes on high alert, releasing a cascade of inflammatory cytokines that circulate throughout your body, causing joint pain, brain fog, and chronic fatigue. For our seniors watching today, it is vital to realize that your body's ability to detoxify and eliminate these naturally occurring plant compounds decreases over time. The liver, which acts as your body's primary filtration plant, experiences a reduction in blood flow and a decrease in the activity of its phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification pathways after the age of 65. This means that a green smoothie that your 30-year-old grandchild can process with ease might remain in your system for days, slowly accumulating in your tissues and causing silent systemic damage. All of the scientific studies, clinical trials, and medical references we discuss in this documentary are thoroughly documented and listed in the description below this video, so you can review them and discuss them with your own healthcare provider. Our goal today is not to scare you away from healthy foods, but to teach you how to consume them safely, in the right quantities, and with the proper preparation methods tailored specifically for the aging body. As we move into our countdown of the top 10 healthy foods you are likely overeating, we will show you exactly how to transform these potential dietary hazards into highly bioavailable, life-giving nutrients that support your longevity, protect your joints, and preserve your kidney health. Turn your attention now to the countdown, starting with item number 10, as we begin this journey toward true, balanced cellular health. If you believe that swapping your regular dairy products for a tall, cold glass of unsweetened almond milk every day is a superior, heart-healthy way to protect your bones and avoid inflammation, you are unknowingly flooding your body with highly irritating anti-nutrients that can damage your gut lining, burden your kidneys, and actively block the absorption of the very minerals you need to prevent osteoporosis. In the modern health landscape, almond milk has been elevated to the status of a clean eating staple, widely recommended for older adults who want to avoid the lactose, hormones, and saturated fats associated with conventional cow's milk. We see it everywhere, packaged in clean, minimalist cartons that promise pure, plant-based nutrition. But when we look beneath the marketing and analyze what almond milk actually does to the delicate, aging digestive tract and cellular biology of someone in their 60s or 70s, we find a highly processed fluid that can do far more harm than good. To understand how this seemingly innocent beverage can disrupt your health, let us look at the story of 74-year-old Evelyn from Sarasota, Florida. Evelyn was an active grandmother who loved gardening and water aerobics. After reading several articles suggesting that dairy was a primary driver of joint pain and systemic inflammation in seniors, she decided to eliminate cow's milk, yogurt, and cheese from her diet entirely. In their place, she adopted almond milk as her primary beverage. She used it to make her morning chia seed puddings, splashed it generously into her daily decaf coffee, and drank a cold glass of it in the afternoon as a light, refreshing snack. At first, Evelyn felt proud of her commitment to a plant-based lifestyle. However, over the course of several months, she began to experience a mysterious, progressive decline in her overall well-being. She developed a persistent, dull ache in her lower back, her knees began to creak and swell, and she felt a strange, chronic muscle weakness that made it increasingly difficult for her to carry groceries or tend to her garden. Her skin became unusually dry, and she noticed that her fingernails were brittle and constantly splitting. When she visited her doctor for a routine bone density scan, she was devastated to learn that her osteopenia had progressed significantly toward osteoporosis, despite her daily consumption of calcium-fortified almond milk. Evelyn's rapid physical decline is a direct consequence of how the aging body interacts with the specific chemical composition of commercial almond milk. To understand the cellular biology at play, we must first look at what almond milk actually is. Commercial almond milk is not simply a liquid version of whole, nourishing almonds. In reality, it is a highly diluted mixture of water, a tiny fraction of finely ground almonds, often representing only about 4 or 5 actual almonds per carton, and a complex cocktail of synthetic vitamins, industrial emulsifiers, thickeners, and chemical stabilizers. When you consume almonds in their whole natural state, they are packed with healthy monounsaturated fats, protein, and dietary fiber. However, almonds also carry some of the highest levels of plant defense chemicals in the entire nut kingdom, specifically phytic acid and oxalates. As we established, these compounds are designed by nature to protect the seed from predators, ensuring it can pass through an animal's digestive tract completely intact, so it can eventually sprout in the soil. When almonds are finely ground, soaked in water, and strained to make almond milk, these water-soluble anti-nutrients are concentrated into the liquid. For a 30-year-old with a highly resilient digestive system and robust kidney function, processing a moderate amount of oxalates and phytic acid is relatively straightforward. But for a 74-year-old like Evelyn, whose digestive tract and kidneys have naturally lost a portion of their processing capacity, This constant daily influx of plant toxins is highly disruptive. Let us trace the journey of almond milk through an aging digestive system to understand the precise cellular damage it causes. Because an older stomach naturally produces less hydrochloric acid, the proteins and complex structures within the almond particles are not fully broken down. As this partially digested liquid moves into the small intestine, the phytic acid immediately begins to bind to any minerals present in the gut. Phytic acid has an incredibly high binding affinity for divalent cations, specifically calcium, zinc, iron, and magnesium. This means that even if your almond milk is heavily fortified with synthetic calcium carbonate or tricalcium phosphate, the phytic acid in the liquid binds to that calcium, rendering it completely insoluble. Your gut cells cannot absorb these bound mineral complexes. Instead of being delivered to your bones, the calcium is carried straight out of your body in your stool. This explains why Evelyn's bone density continued to decline despite drinking fortified almond milk daily. She was consuming calcium on paper, but on a cellular level, her bones were starving for it. At the same time, we must look at the impact of the oxalates concentrated in the almond milk. When oxalates enter an aging gut that has a thin mucosal layer, they easily pass through the intestinal wall and enter the bloodstream. Here, they bind with free calcium ions to form microscopic, razor-sharp calcium oxalate crystals. In older adults, whose kidneys have a naturally reduced glomerular filtration rate, these sharp crystals accumulate in the renal tubules, causing microirritation and silent, progressive kidney strain. This was the source of Evelyn's persistent lower backache, which was actually her kidneys crying out for relief from the constant filtration of sharp oxalate complexes. Furthermore, these crystals do not stop at the kidneys. They circulate through the bloodstream and deposit themselves into areas of low circulation, such as joint capsules and tendons. Once lodged in the joints, they act like physical irritants, triggering a localized immune response. Your body's immune cells, recognizing these crystals as foreign invaders, release inflammatory cytokines to try and dissolve them. This chronic, low-grade immune activation leads to swelling, stiffness, and pain, which explains why Evelyn's knees began to creak and ache after she made the switch to almond milk. There is another hidden danger lurking in almost every carton of store-bought almond milk: industrial emulsifiers and thickeners. Because almonds and water do not naturally mix, manufacturers must use chemical additives to keep the liquid from separating on the grocery store shelf. The most common additives used are carrageenan, gellan gum, guar gum, and xanthan gum. While these compounds are deemed safe for consumption by regulatory bodies, recent research in cellular biology shows that they are highly destructive to the delicate mucosal barrier of the human gut, especially in older adults. Think of your gut lining as a beautifully organized, highly protective lawn. The mucosal layer is like a thick, healthy layer of soil that protects the roots of the grass your gut cells. Emulsifiers act like a harsh chemical detergent sprayed onto that soil. They emulsify or dissolve the protective mucus layer, leaving the underlying gut cells completely exposed to raw acids, bacteria, and undigested food particles. Over time, this constant chemical erosion of the mucus layer leads to localized inflammation, gut dysbiosis, and increased intestinal permeability. When Evelyn's gut barrier was compromised by the combination of emulsifiers, phytic acid, and oxalates, her body began to absorb larger, unemulsified food particles directly into her bloodstream, triggering a systemic immune response that manifested as chronic fatigue, dry skin, and muscle weakness. To reverse this damage and restore her health, we had Evelyn completely eliminate commercial, store-bought almond milk from her kitchen. We replaced it with warm, mineral-rich bone broth and easily digestible, raw or low-temperature pasteurized goat's milk, which is naturally homogenized, highly digestible, and contains short and medium-chain fatty acids that soothe the aging gut lining rather than irritating it. Goat's milk also contains bioactive compounds that naturally support bone density without the need for synthetic fortification. Within just 8 weeks of removing commercial almond milk from her daily routine, Evelyn experienced a profound shift. The dull ache in her lower back completely vanished, her joint stiffness resolved, her skin regained its natural moisture, and her energy levels returned to what they had been years prior. Her body was finally able to absorb the essential minerals it needed to rebuild her bones and support her muscles. If you are not ready to give up almond milk entirely, you must transition away from commercial varieties and learn how to prepare it in a way that respects your aging physiology. To safely consume almond milk, you must make it yourself at home, using traditional preparation methods that systematically neutralize the plant's defense chemicals. To do this, start with organic, raw, skinless almonds. The brown skin of the almond contains the highest concentration of tannins and phytic acid, so removing the skin is an absolute necessity. You can purchase blanched almonds, or you can blanch them yourself by dropping raw almonds into boiling water for exactly 60 seconds, then slipping the skins off with your fingers. Once you have your skinless almonds, you must perform the critical step of soaking and sprouting. Place the blanched almonds in a bowl of filtered water, add a teaspoon of unrefined sea salt, and let them soak at room temperature for at least 12 to 24 hours. This soaking process mimics the natural conditions needed for the seed to grow, which signals the almond to release its phytic acid and activate its own digestive enzymes. The sea salt acts as an enzyme activator, helping to break down the complex proteins and fats into simpler, highly bioavailable compounds. After soaking, thoroughly rinse the almonds under clean, running water to wash away the released phytic acid and oxalates. Place the soaked almonds into a high-powered blender with 3 cups of filtered water. Blend on high for 2 minutes until the mixture is completely smooth and creamy. Next, you must perform a thorough straining process. Pass the blended liquid through a fine mesh nut milk bag, squeezing out every drop of liquid while leaving the dry almond pulp behind. This pulp contains the vast majority of the remaining insoluble fibers and lingering anti-nutrients, so discarding it or using it only in well-cooked recipes is essential for protecting your aging gut. The resulting liquid is a pure, clean, home-brewed almond milk that is entirely free from industrial emulsifiers, gums, synthetic additives, and the majority of the harmful plant defense chemicals. For optimal timing and dosage, older adults should limit their consumption of even this clean, homemade almond milk to no more than 4 to 6 ounces per day. Because the aging digestive tract thrives on warmth and easy assimilation, avoid drinking your almond milk ice cold straight from the refrigerator. Cold liquids can constrict the blood vessels in your stomach, temporarily halting the production of hydrochloric acid and stalling your digestive processes. Instead, gently warm your homemade almond milk on the stove before consuming it, or use it as a warm base for nourishing herbal teas. To maximize the health benefits of your homemade almond milk and support your bone and muscle health, you should pair it with a specific synergy tip. Whenever you consume your warmed almond milk, pair it with a fat-soluble vitamin complex containing vitamin D3 and vitamin K2. These 2 vitamins work in perfect harmony to manage calcium in your body. Vitamin D3 acts like a delivery truck, dramatically increasing the absorption of calcium from your digestive tract into your bloodstream. Once that calcium is in your blood, vitamin K2 acts like a GPS navigator, directing the calcium away from your arteries and kidneys, where it can cause dangerous calcification and stiffness, and driving it straight into your bones and teeth, where it belongs. By combining a small warm portion of homemade skinless soaked almond milk with a high-quality vitamin D3 and K2 supplement, you ensure that your body can easily digest the liquid, protect your gut barrier from harmful emulsifiers, and successfully utilize the available minerals to keep your skeletal system strong, resilient, and ready for a long, active life. If you are starting your morning with a tall, vibrant glass of fresh-pressed green juice or a cold-pressed vegetable smoothie in an effort to flood your body with life-giving antioxidants, you are unknowingly exposing your aging liver and pancreas to a concentrated, fiber-free rush of fructose and oxalates that can trigger rapid fat deposition in your abdomen, strain your kidneys, and cause severe, silent blood sugar spikes. In modern wellness culture, juicing has been elevated to the absolute pinnacle of clean eating, heavily promoted as an effortless way for seniors to squeeze the nutritional power of several pounds of raw kale, spinach, celery, and apples into a single, easy-to-drink glass. We are told that by removing the tough, insoluble fiber, we are giving our digestive systems a much-needed break, while delivering a concentrated shot of vitamins directly into our cells. But when we look at this process through the lens of aging physiology, we find that stripping the fiber from fruits and vegetables creates a highly unbalanced liquid that bypasses your body's natural digestive speed bumps, leading to a state of metabolic overload that can rapidly compromise your long-term health. To understand how this daily green ritual can turn against you as you age, let us examine the story of 69-year-old Thomas, a retired civil engineer living in Scottsdale, Arizona. Thomas was a disciplined man who had always taken care of his physical fitness, but as he neared his 70th birthday, he noticed his morning energy levels were beginning to lag, and his joints felt increasingly stiff when he got out of bed. Eager to reclaim his youthful vitality, Thomas purchased an expensive commercial-grade cold-pressed juicer. Every morning he prepared what he believed was an elixir of youth, a large 16-ounce green juice made from a dense combination of raw kale, Swiss chard, celery, fresh ginger, and 2 green apples to sweeten the taste. Thomas felt an immediate, watery rush of energy right after drinking his green juice, which convinced him that the therapy was working. However, as the weeks turned into months, his health began to take a strange downward turn. The initial burst of morning energy was replaced by a profound, heavy crash just 1 hour after drinking his juice, leaving him so exhausted that he had to sit down and rest before completing his morning yard work. Even more confusingly, Thomas began to develop a prominent, stubborn layer of visceral fat right around his waistline, despite the fact that his overall diet was extremely clean. When his annual physical exams came back, his fasting triglycerides had soared to a dangerous level, his liver enzymes were elevated, and his doctor noted that he was showing early signs of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Thomas's sudden metabolic decline is a classic illustration of how an aging digestive system and liver process concentrated liquid nutrients. To understand the science behind this phenomenon, we must look at what happens to a fruit or vegetable when you put it through a juicer. In nature, the vitamins, minerals, and natural sugars found in plants are locked inside a complex, highly structural matrix of soluble and insoluble fiber. When you eat a whole apple or a whole head of raw celery, your teeth must physically chew the food, mixing it with salivary enzymes. Once in the stomach, the presence of physical fiber slows down the rate at which the stomach empties its contents into the small intestine, a process known as gastric emptying. This slow, controlled release is highly beneficial for older adults. As we age, our insulin sensitivity naturally declines, meaning our cells require more time to clear glucose from the bloodstream. Furthermore, the liver's ability to process simple sugars, particularly fructose, becomes significantly compromised over time. When the fiber matrix is completely intact, the absorption of sugars in the small intestine is slow and steady, allowing the aging liver and pancreas to process the incoming nutrients without becoming overwhelmed. However, when you run those same fruits and vegetables through a juicer, the machine's spinning blades or pressing plates completely strip away the insoluble fiber matrix, discarding it as dry pulp. What you are left with is a highly concentrated liquid delivery system of free sugars and water-soluble plant chemicals. When Thomas drank his 16-ounce green juice first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, there was absolutely no physical fiber to slow down the passage of the liquid. The juice bypassed his stomach almost instantly and flooded into his small intestine. Because the sugars in the juice, specifically the fructose from the green apples and the glucose from the vegetables, were already completely liberated from their fibrous cages, they were absorbed into Thomas's bloodstream with extreme rapidity. Even though green apples are considered a low glycemic fruit, concentrated liquid fructose behaves very differently in the body than a whole fruit. To understand the fate of this liquid fructose, we must look at the cellular biology of the liver. Unlike glucose, which can be used as direct fuel by almost every cell in your body, fructose can only be metabolized by your liver. When a massive wave of liquid fructose arrives at the liver all at once, it behaves exactly like a metabolic bottleneck. Think of your liver as a busy postal sorting facility, and the incoming fructose as a sudden, unexpected mountain of packages. The workers at the facility simply cannot keep up with the volume. Because the liver cannot store this excess fructose, it has no choice but to rapidly convert it into fat through a pathway called de novo lipogenesis. This newly created fat is highly problematic. Some of it is packed into very low-density lipoproteins and sent into the bloodstream, which explained why Thomas's fasting triglycerides spiked so dramatically. The rest of the fat remains trapped inside the liver cells themselves, packing around the delicate hepatocyte organelles and leading to the development of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. As fat accumulates in the liver, it disrupts the liver's sensitivity to insulin, causing the liver to constantly dump excess glucose into the bloodstream even when you are fasting. This chronic state of insulin resistance prevents your body from accessing stored body fat for fuel, which is precisely why Thomas began to accumulate a stubborn ring of visceral fat around his belly, despite his low-calorie green juice lifestyle. But the metabolic overload of liquid sugars is only half of the problem. We must also address the highly concentrated dose of plant defense chemicals, specifically oxalates, that Thomas was consuming every single day. Kale, Swiss chard, and spinach are exceptionally high in oxalates. When you eat these vegetables whole and cooked, your digestive tract can only absorb a small fraction of the oxalates because the fiber limits their bioavailability, and the heat of cooking helps to degrade some of these compounds. However, when you juice raw kale and Swiss chard, you are drinking a highly concentrated liquid extract of pure oxalates on an empty stomach. Without any fiber to bind to these compounds, they are absorbed into the bloodstream with near-perfect efficiency. Once in the blood, these oxalates bind to calcium, forming the abrasive, sharp calcium oxalate crystals we discussed in our introduction. In a 69-year-old body, these crystals travel to the kidneys, where they can physically scratch, irritate, and clog the delicate filtration units known as nephrons. This constant crystallization in the kidneys not only reduces their ability to filter toxins from your blood, but also triggers a systemic, low-grade inflammatory response. This inflammation can manifest as localized joint pain, muscle stiffness, and general fatigue, which explained why Thomas felt so stiff and achy when he got out of bed every morning. To rescue Thomas from this state of metabolic overload, we immediately had him unplug his juicer and retire it to the back of his pantry. We transitioned him away from liquid nutrients and back to the ancestral practice of eating whole, physically intact, cooked foods. We replaced his morning green juice with a warm, nourishing breakfast of 2 pasture-raised eggs cooked in grass-fed butter, paired with a small side of thoroughly cooked, low-oxalate greens like sautéed zucchini or well-boiled dandelion greens. Within 6 short weeks of stopping his daily green juice habit, Thomas experienced a complete turnaround. His morning energy levels stabilized, the post-breakfast energy crashes disappeared, his joint stiffness resolved, and his waistline naturally began to shrink. Most importantly, his follow-up blood work showed that his fasting triglycerides had dropped back into a perfectly healthy range, and his liver enzymes had normalized, indicating that his liver cells were finally clearing out the trapped fat and recovering their metabolic flexibility. If you enjoy the refreshing taste of green beverages and do not want to give them up entirely, you must shift your approach from juicing to a highly strategic, low-sugar, low-oxalate blending method that respects your aging biology. First, you must completely avoid using a juicer. You must keep the fiber intact. Instead, use a high-powered blender, which pulverizes the ingredients but retains 100% of the beneficial dietary fiber. This fiber is essential because it acts as a physical sponge in your small intestine, trapping sugars and slowing down their absorption so your liver and pancreas are never overwhelmed. Second, you must completely eliminate high-sugar fruits like apples, bananas, grapes, and pears from your blended drinks. For an older adult, adding sweet fruits to a blended green drink is a recipe for insulin spikes and liver fat deposition. If you need a touch of sweetness, use a few drops of organic, alcohol-free stevia leaf extract or a small handful of low-glycemic, antioxidant-rich wild blueberries, which are packed with beneficial anthocyanins that actually support insulin sensitivity. Third, you must carefully select your greens. Absolutely avoid using raw, high oxalate greens like spinach, Swiss chard, or beet greens in your blender. Instead, choose low oxalate, highly digestible alternatives such as romaine lettuce, cucumbers, celery, or fresh mint leaves. Celery and cucumbers are incredibly hydrating and contain natural compounds that support healthy blood pressure levels without overloading your body with oxalates. To prepare your low oxalate, fiber-rich green blend, place 1 cup of chopped organic romaine lettuce, half a peeled cucumber, 2 stalks of celery, a small slice of fresh ginger root, and half a cup of water into your blender. Blend on high until the mixture is completely smooth. Because the fiber is fully retained, this drink will have a thick, satisfying texture that keeps you full for hours and prevents any sudden blood sugar spikes. For optimal timing and dosage, older adults should limit their consumption of this blended green drink to no more than 8 ounces per day, and it should never be consumed as a meal replacement on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. Instead, consume this drink alongside or immediately after a protein-rich meal, such as a wild-caught salmon fillet or a pasture-raised chicken breast. This timing ensures that your digestive system is already fully activated and that the amino acids from your protein are present to help rebuild muscle tissue, while the fiber from the green blend supports your gut microbiome. To elevate this green blend into a powerful therapeutic tool for your aging body, you must apply our key synergy tip. Whenever you consume your blended green drink, add a tablespoon of organic, cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil or a tablespoon of raw, unpasteurized apple cider vinegar directly into the blender before mixing. The inclusion of a healthy, monounsaturated fat like olive oil serves a vital biological purpose. It dramatically enhances the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin A and vitamin K, which are highly abundant in leafy greens. Without a source of healthy fat, these fat-soluble vitamins cannot be properly packaged into micellar structures in your small intestine, meaning they will simply pass through your body unabsorbed. Meanwhile, the acetic acid in apple cider vinegar acts as a powerful metabolic modulator. It has been scientifically shown to slow gastric emptying even further and temporarily deactivate salivary amylase, which helps to ensure an incredibly flat, stable blood sugar response. By combining your low oxalate, fiber-rich green blend with a splash of healthy fat and a touch of apple cider vinegar, you transform a potential metabolic hazard into a highly supportive, gut-friendly, and liver-protective tonic that helps you age with grace, strength, and vibrant health. If you are snacking on raw walnuts, almonds, or pumpkin seeds throughout the day because you believe they are the ultimate protein-rich superfood for your brain and heart, you are unknowingly overloading your aging pancreas with highly indigestible enzyme inhibitors and irritating your gut lining with sharp, abrasive fibers that can trigger chronic digestive distress and compromise your body's ability to absorb essential amino acids. In modern nutritional advice, raw nuts and seeds are consistently promoted as the perfect, convenient snack for seniors, a natural source of healthy fats, fiber, and plant-based protein that can ward off cognitive decline and protect your cardiovascular system. We are told to keep a bag of them in our cars, on our kitchen counters, or in our purses so we can grab a handful whenever we feel our energy dipping. But when we look at the raw physical structure and chemical makeup of these seeds through the lens of aging physiology, we discover that raw, unprocessed nuts and seeds are incredibly difficult for an older digestive system to break down, placing a significant biological burden on your pancreas and stomach. To understand how this daily snacking habit can compromise your health as you age, let us examine the story of 71-year-old Leonard, a retired pharmacist from Boulder, Colorado. Leonard was a highly health-conscious individual who loved hiking in the Rocky Mountains. To maintain his stamina and protect his cognitive function, Leonard decided to replace his processed afternoon snacks with a daily large handful of raw organic mixed nuts, consisting of almonds, walnuts, pecans, and pumpkin seeds. He consumed this mix almost every single afternoon, believing he was flooding his body with brain-boosting omega-3 fatty acids and heart-healthy magnesium. Initially, Leonard felt satisfied with his clean snack choice. However, as the months went by, he began to notice a persistent, uncomfortable tightness in his upper abdomen shortly after eating his nut mix. This tightness was often accompanied by loud, embarrassing gas, a feeling of heavy bloating that lasted for hours, and increasingly irregular bowel movements. More concerningly, despite his active lifestyle and clean eating, Leonard began to experience a progressive loss of muscle mass in his arms and legs, a condition his doctor referred to as early-stage sarcopenia. He felt physically weaker during his weekend hikes, and his recovery time after a walk lengthened significantly. Leonard's physical decline is a direct result of how an aging digestive tract interacts with the protective chemical defenses of raw nuts and seeds. To understand the cellular biology at play, we must realize that nuts and seeds are designed to survive the harsh digestive tract of animals so they can pass through intact and sprout in the soil. To ensure this survival, nature has equipped them with two incredibly powerful defense mechanisms: phytic acid and potent enzyme inhibitors, specifically trypsin inhibitors. When a young person with an abundance of strong stomach acid and highly active pancreatic enzymes consumes raw nuts, their body can partially overcome these chemical defenses, though still not with perfect efficiency. But as we age, our digestive capacity undergoes a natural and significant decline. As we have established, after 65, the stomach's production of hydrochloric acid drops substantially. Hydrochloric acid is the essential chemical trigger that activates pepsin, the primary enzyme responsible for initiating the breakdown of proteins in the stomach. When Leonard consumed a heavy, dense handful of raw nuts, his low-acid stomach could not properly soften the tough, fibrous outer structures of the nuts or initiate the protein breakdown process. As these dense, undegraded nut particles traveled from his stomach into his small intestine, they arrived with their natural enzyme inhibitors completely intact. Once in the small intestine, these trypsin inhibitors perform their natural duty. They bind directly to the pancreatic enzymes, specifically trypsin and chymotrypsin, which your pancreas secretes to break down dietary proteins into individual amino acids. By binding to and deactivating these vital enzymes, the inhibitors in the raw nuts effectively freeze your protein digestion process. This means that not only are the proteins within the nuts themselves rendered completely indigestible, but any other proteins consumed during that meal or throughout the afternoon are also blocked from being broken down. For an older adult, this is a physiological catastrophe. As we age, our muscles experience a phenomenon known as anabolic resistance, meaning we require a much higher and more consistent intake of clean, easily absorbable amino acids, particularly branched-chain amino acids like leucine, just to maintain our existing muscle mass and prevent sarcopenia. When Leonard blocked his own digestive enzymes by consuming raw nuts every afternoon, he was unknowingly starving his muscles of the vital amino acids needed for cellular repair and maintenance, which directly contributed to the wasting of his arm and leg muscles and his declining physical strength. But the biological strain does not stop there. Because the pancreatic enzymes were deactivated, the large, complex proteins and fats within the nuts remained completely undigested as they traveled down the length of Leonard's intestinal tract. When these large, undigested food particles reach the lower part of the small intestine and the colon, they become an abundant food source for opportunistic gut bacteria. These bacteria begin to rapidly ferment the undigested proteins and fats, producing a large volume of hydrogen and methane gases. This rapid bacterial fermentation is what caused Leonard's severe abdominal tightness, loud gas, and uncomfortable bloating. Furthermore, the sharp, abrasive, insoluble fiber structures of the raw nuts can physically scrape against the delicate, thinning mucosal lining of an older colon, causing micro tears, localized inflammation, and a sluggish bowel transit time that manifests as chronic constipation. To rescue Leonard from this state of digestive and muscular decline, we immediately had him stop consuming raw, unprocessed nuts and seeds. We transitioned him to easily digestible, fully bioavailable protein sources to help rebuild his muscles, such as slow-cooked grass-fed beef, wild-caught fish, and pasture-raised eggs. To address his desire for a convenient, healthy snack, we taught him how to systematically neutralize the chemical defenses of nuts and seeds using traditional ancestral preparation methods that unlock their dense nutritional value without taxing his aging pancreas. Within just 6 weeks of making these precise adjustments, Leonard's digestive issues completely vanished. His bloating and gas disappeared, his bowel movements became regular and effortless, and his upper abdominal tightness resolved. More importantly, because his body was finally able to absorb the amino acids from his food, his muscle wasting halted, his physical strength returned, and he was once again able to complete his mountain hikes with ease and energy. If you want to enjoy the rich, nourishing benefits of nuts and seeds without causing pancreatic fatigue or gut irritation, you must transition away from raw varieties and master the simple, life-changing technique of soaking, sprouting, and dehydrating. This ancient process deactivated the plant's chemical defenses, pre-digests the complex proteins and fats, and makes the minerals highly bioavailable to your aging body. To perform this process at home, start with raw, organic, unpasteurized nuts or seeds, such as walnuts, pecans, pumpkin seeds, or sunflower seeds. Place your chosen nuts or seeds into a large glass bowl. Cover them completely with warm, filtered water, leaving a few inches of extra water at the top as the nuts will swell. For every cup of nuts or seeds, add 1 teaspoon of unrefined sea salt to the water. The sea salt is a crucial component. It acts as an enzyme activator, signaling the seed that it is in a safe, nutrient-rich environment to begin the germination process. Stir the mixture gently to dissolve the salt. Leave the bowl on your kitchen counter at room temperature to soak. For softer nuts like walnuts and pecans, soak them for at least 8 to 12 hours. For harder nuts like almonds, let them soak for a full 24 hours. During this soaking window, a biological miracle occurs. The water and warmth deactivate the trypsin inhibitors, neutralize the phytic acid, and begin to break down the dense, complex starches and proteins into simple, easily absorbable nutrients. After the soaking period is complete, pour the nuts or seeds into a colander and discard the soaking water, which is now loaded with the released plant toxins and anti-nutrients. Rinse the soaked nuts thoroughly under warm running water until the water runs completely clear. At this stage, the nuts are incredibly soft, hydrated, and easy to digest, but they are also highly perishable due to their moisture content. To preserve them and restore their satisfying, crispy texture, you must dry them thoroughly. Spread the wet nuts in a single layer on a baking sheet. Place them in your oven set to the lowest possible temperature, ideally between 110 and 150 degrees Fahrenheit, for 12 to 24 hours. If you have a food dehydrator, this is the perfect tool for the job. Keeping the temperature low is absolutely essential. High heat can damage the delicate, heat-sensitive monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats within the nuts, turning them rancid and inflammatory. Once the nuts are completely dry and crispy, store them in an airtight glass jar in your refrigerator or freezer to maintain their freshness. For optimal timing and dosage, older adults should limit their consumption of these activated nuts and seeds to no more than 1 small handful, about 1 ounce per day. Because fats and dense fibers require a significant amount of bile and digestive energy to process, avoid snacking on them late in the evening or close to bedtime, when your digestive tract naturally slows down to prepare for sleep. Instead, enjoy your activated nuts as a midday snack or sprinkle them over a warm cooked meal to add texture and nutrition. To maximize the therapeutic benefits of your activated nuts and seeds and protect your cardiovascular health, you should implement our key synergy tip. Whenever you consume your small handful of soaked and dehydrated nuts, pair them with a cup of warm ginger tea or a small cup of warm, raw, unpasteurized bone broth. The inclusion of warm ginger tea or bone broth serves a profound physiological purpose. Ginger contains active gingerols and shogols, which have been scientifically shown to stimulate the production of saliva, gastric juices, and bile, while dramatically accelerating gastric emptying. This ensures that the healthy fats within the nuts are rapidly emulsified and processed by your gallbladder and liver. Meanwhile, bone broth is rich in the amino acid glycine, which is the primary building block your body uses to synthesize and repair the protective collagen lining of your digestive tract. By pairing your easily digestible activated nuts with the digestive boosting power of ginger or the gut healing properties of bone broth, you create a perfect digestive synergy that supports your muscle mass, protects your pancreas, and allows you to enjoy the deep, satisfying nourishment of nature's seeds without any of the metabolic strain. If you are pouring yourself a cold, refreshing glass of pasteurized, store-bought orange juice or grapefruit juice every morning because you believe it is a vital, vitamin-packed shield against seasonal illness, you are unknowingly delivering a massive, fiber-free hammer blow of liquid sugars to your aging liver that can accelerate arterial stiffness, trigger sudden insulin spikes, and promote the accumulation of dangerous visceral fat around your heart and liver. In our society, fruit juice has been marketed for generations as a wholesome, indispensable breakfast companion, a concentrated drop of pure sunshine and vitamin C that keeps your immune system strong and your blood vessels healthy. We have been taught to believe that drinking our fruit is just as beneficial as eating it. But when we look at the molecular reality of pasteurized fruit juices through the lens of aging cardiovascular and metabolic biology, we find a highly refined, sugar-rich liquid that behaves in your bloodstream almost identically to a sweetened soda, placing a massive biological strain on your pancreas and arterial walls. To understand how this daily breakfast beverage can disrupt your health as you age, let us examine the story of 67-year-old Martha from Savannah, Georgia. Martha was a retired dental hygienist who took great pride in her appearance and her health. After reading that seniors need more dietary antioxidants to combat free radical damage and support skin elasticity, she decided to start every morning with a large 8-ounce glass of organic, pasteurized, high-pulp orange juice, which she paired with her morning whole wheat toast. She chose the high-pulp option because she believed the added pulp provided the necessary dietary fiber to keep her blood sugar stable. Initially, Martha enjoyed the bright, energizing flavor of her morning juice. However, as the months progressed, she began to notice a series of worrying changes in her body. She began to experience a strange, persistent stiffness in her fingers and wrists every morning, which made it difficult to open jars or write. Her skin, rather than becoming more radiant, became increasingly dry and developed unusual, itchy red patches. Most alarmingly, during her annual cardiovascular checkup, her doctor noted that her systolic blood pressure had jumped from a stable 120 up to 145, and her pulse wave velocity test, a standard medical measurement used to assess the stiffness of the large arteries, indicated that her arterial walls had become significantly stiffer and less elastic over the previous year. Martha's sudden arterial and joint issues are a direct consequence of how an aging vascular system and liver interact with the concentrated sugars found in pasteurized fruit juice. To understand the cellular biology at play, we must first look at the pasteurization process itself. When fruit juice is squeezed and bottled on an industrial scale, it must be heated to extremely high temperatures to kill off any potential bacteria and extend its shelf life. While this heat treatment ensures the juice is safe from pathogens, it completely denatures the delicate, naturally occurring enzymes and significantly degrades the heat-sensitive vitamin C and active bioflavonoids. To make up for this loss of nutritional value and flavor, Manufacturers often add synthetic vitamins and flavor packs back into the liquid. What you are left with in the bottle is a sterile, highly concentrated solution of water, degraded plant acids, and free, unbound sugars, specifically sucrose, glucose, and fructose. When Martha drank her 8-ounce glass of orange juice on an empty stomach, she was consuming the sugar equivalent of roughly 3 whole medium oranges, but without any of the physical, cellular fiber structure of the whole fruit. Even though she chose the high pulp option, the microscopic strands of pulp floating in commercial juice are not structurally intact enough to slow down the speed of digestion. Without an intact fiber matrix to act as a physical barrier, this liquid sugar bypassed her stomach almost instantly and flooded into her small intestine, where it was absorbed into her bloodstream within minutes. This rapid absorption triggers a massive, sudden rise in blood glucose. In a 30-year-old with high muscle mass and excellent insulin sensitivity, the pancreas can quickly secrete insulin to ferry this glucose into the muscle cells for energy. However, in a 67-year-old body, insulin receptors on the cell membranes are naturally less responsive. This means that Martha's pancreas had to work overtime, secreting a huge surge of insulin to force the glucose out of her blood. This chronic elevation of insulin is highly damaging to the delicate, single-cell inner lining of your blood vessels, known as the endothelium. High levels of insulin signal the smooth muscle cells surrounding your arteries to proliferate, which physically thickens and stiffens the arterial walls over time. This process, known as arteriosclerosis, is precisely why Martha's blood pressure began to climb so rapidly and why her arterial stiffness markers worsened. At the same time, we must look at the fate of the concentrated fructose in the juice. As we established, fructose cannot be used directly by your cells. It must be processed entirely by your liver. When a massive wave of liquid fructose hits an aging liver, it undergoes a chemical pathway that produces a highly toxic byproduct known as uric acid. Uric acid is a metabolic waste product that in high concentrations can deposit as sharp, painful sodium urate crystals in the joint spaces, mimicking the pain of gout or rheumatoid arthritis. This was the exact source of Martha's morning finger and wrist stiffness. Furthermore, high levels of uric acid in the blood directly block the production of a vital molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a natural vasodilator produced by your endothelial cells, which signals your blood vessels to relax, widen, and remain elastic. When uric acid suppresses nitric oxide production, your blood vessels remain constricted, stiff, and tight, forcing your heart to pump harder against a high-pressure system, which drives your blood pressure up even further. Additionally, the excess fructose that the liver cannot process is rapidly converted into fat through de novo lipogenesis. This fat is packed into very low-density lipoproteins and sent into the blood, where it easily becomes oxidized, sticking to the irritated, stiff arterial walls and forming plaque. The remaining fat accumulates inside the liver itself, creating a highly inflamed fatty liver that further worsens insulin resistance and visceral fat deposition. Finally, the rapid bonding of these free sugars to the proteins in Martha's body led to a process called glycation. This reaction creates advanced glycation end products, which are highly destructive compounds that physically cross-link the collagen fibers in your skin, joints, and arteries. This cross-linking makes the collagen stiff, brittle, and prone to tearing, which explained both the sudden aging and dryness of Martha's skin and the rapid stiffening of her vascular system. To reverse this vascular damage and restore her health, we immediately had Martha stop drinking all fruit juices, including organic and high pulp varieties. We replaced her morning juice with clean, mineral-rich filtered water infused with a squeeze of fresh, raw lemon juice, and we encouraged her to consume her fruit only in its whole, physically intact form. Within 8 weeks of making this simple yet profound dietary change, Martha's physical transformation was remarkable. Her blood pressure returned to a beautiful, stable 118/74. Her morning joint stiffness in her fingers and wrists completely resolved. Her skin regained its natural moisture and elasticity, and her follow-up arterial stiffness test showed that her blood vessels had regained a highly youthful, pliable elasticity. If you enjoy the bright, refreshing taste of citrus and fruits and want to harness their true nutritional benefits without causing vascular stiffness or liver overload, you must completely avoid bottled, pasteurized juices and transition to a highly strategic, whole food, low glycemic approach. First, you must obey the golden rule of fruit consumption. Eat your fruit, do not drink it. When you eat a whole, raw orange or half of a fresh grapefruit, you are consuming the sugars in their natural cellular context. Your teeth must break down the fibrous membranes, and your stomach must digest the physical pulp. This process slows the release of sugars into your bloodstream, allowing your liver and pancreas to process the nutrients smoothly without any sudden spikes in insulin or uric acid. Limit your intake of whole fruit to 1 or 2 small servings per day, focusing on low glycemic, antioxidant-rich options such as wild berries, cherries, or green apples, which contain powerful phytonutrients that support cardiovascular health. Second, if you desire a refreshing citrus beverage, you must make it yourself using only fresh, raw, unpasteurized lemons or limes. Unlike oranges or grapefruits, lemons and limes contain virtually zero fructose or glucose, meaning they will not cause insulin spikes, glycation, or liver fat deposition. However, they are exceptionally rich in citric acid, active vitamin C, and bioflavonoids like hesperidin, which have been scientifically shown to support endothelial function, promote nitric oxide production, and prevent the formation of calcium oxalate kidney stones. To prepare a highly therapeutic, vascular supportive citrus drink at home, squeeze the juice of half of a fresh, raw organic lemon or lime into an 8-ounce glass of warm or room temperature filtered water. Warm or room temperature water is essential for older adults because, as we have established, ice-cold liquids can shock your digestive system, constricting the blood vessels in your stomach and halting the production of digestive juices. Do not add sugar, honey, or maple syrup to this drink. If you need a touch of sweetness, add 1 or 2 drops of organic, alcohol-free liquid stevia leaf extract. For optimal timing and dosage, older adults should drink this fresh lemon water first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, about 30 minutes before breakfast. This timing allows the active citric acid to stimulate your stomach's parietal cells, naturally boosting the production of hydrochloric acid and preparing your digestive tract to efficiently break down the proteins and absorb the minerals from your upcoming meal. It also helps to hydrate your cells after a long night of sleep, flushing out metabolic waste and supporting healthy kidney function. To turn this simple morning drink into a powerful anti-aging vascular tonic, you must implement our key synergy tip. Whenever you drink your warm lemon water, stir in a pinch of high-quality, unrefined gray Celtic sea salt or pink Himalayan salt, and pair it with a high-quality dietary supplement containing vitamin C and active citrus bioflavonoids, specifically rutin and hesperidin. The addition of a tiny pinch of unrefined sea salt serves a vital physiological purpose. It provides over 80 trace minerals, including magnesium, potassium, and sodium, in their natural ionic state. These minerals work in perfect harmony with the water to restore cellular hydration, support the electrical conductivity of your heart, and regulate healthy blood pressure. Meanwhile, pairing the fresh lemon juice with additional rutin and hesperidin creates a beautiful synergy that significantly strengthens the walls of your capillaries, reduces vascular inflammation, and enhances the biological activity of the vitamin C. By combining your warm lemon water with ionic trace minerals and bioflavonoids, you create a powerful liver-protective and artery-softening elixir that helps you maintain pristine cardiovascular health and vibrant energy throughout your golden years. If you are loading your plate with large portions of farm-raised salmon, tilapia, or cod multiple times a week because you believe it is a clean, low-fat source of protein that will protect your heart and support your brain, you are unknowingly exposing your aging body to a concentrated cocktail of synthetic chemicals, inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids, and heavy metals that can damage your cellular membranes, burden your liver, and trigger systemic arterial inflammation. In modern health advice, fish is consistently held up as the gold standard of healthy proteins for seniors, celebrated for its high concentration of heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids and its ability to prevent muscle wasting without the saturated fats associated with red meat. We are told to eat more fish, to choose the convenient, affordable cuts available at our local grocery store, and to make it a central pillar of our weekly meal plan. But when we look beneath the surface and examine the biological differences between industrially farmed fish and wild-caught varieties through the lens of aging cellular biology and detoxification pathways, we discover that conventional farm-raised fish is a highly contaminated food that can place an overwhelming burden on your body's defense systems. To understand how this seemingly healthy protein source can compromise your health as you age, let us examine the story of 73-year-old Harrison, a retired commercial pilot from Pensacola, Florida. Harrison had always been an active, outdoorsy man, but as he reached his early 70s, his doctor warned him that his systemic inflammatory markers, specifically his high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, were beginning to rise, and he was showing early signs of mild cognitive impairment, occasionally struggling to recall names or find his car keys in parking lots. Determined to protect his brain and cool down the inflammation in his body, Harrison decided to make a dramatic dietary shift. He stopped eating beef and pork entirely and began consuming farm-raised Atlantic salmon, which he purchased in bulk from his local warehouse club 3 to 4 times a week. He baked the fish gently, seasoned it with a squeeze of lemon and a pinch of salt, and served it with a side of steamed vegetables. Harrison believed he was giving his brain and heart the ultimate nutritional support. Yet, over the course of 9 months, his health did not improve. It deteriorated in a highly concerning manner. He began to experience a profound daily brain fog that made him feel as though his mind were wrapped in a thick, heavy blanket. He developed a persistent, itchy rash across his chest and back, and his joints, particularly his hips and ankles, became so stiff and painful that he could no longer enjoy his morning walks along the beach. Most shockingly, during his next medical checkup, his systemic inflammatory markers had doubled, and a comprehensive heavy metal screen revealed that his blood levels of mercury and cadmium had surged into a highly toxic range. Harrison's rapid decline is a powerful illustration of the molecular differences between industrially farmed fish and wild-caught species, and how these differences affect the delicate biology of an older adult. To understand what was happening inside Harrison's cells, we must first look at the environment of a modern fish farm. Unlike wild fish, which swim freely in open, clean ocean waters and consume a natural, species-appropriate diet of smaller fish, krill, and algae, farm-raised fish are confined to extremely crowded, underwater pens or land-based tanks. Because of these cramped and highly unsanitary conditions, the fish are highly susceptible to disease and sea lice infestations. To keep them alive, operators frequently treat the water and the fish feed with high doses of synthetic antibiotics, pesticides, and antifungal chemicals. Furthermore, the feed given to farm-raised fish is highly unnatural. Instead of their natural marine diet, farmed salmon and tilapia are fed a dense pellet mixture consisting of genetically modified corn, soy, poultry meal, and processed vegetable oils. This diet completely alters the fatty acid profile of the fish. While wild-caught salmon is prized for its high concentration of anti-inflammatory eicosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid, commonly known as EPA and DHA, omega-3 fatty acids, farm-raised salmon contains an exceptionally high amount of pro-inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids, specifically arachidonic acid. When Harrison consumed farm-raised salmon multiple times a week, He was not flooding his body with protective omega-3s. Instead, he was consuming an imbalanced, highly inflammatory ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. Let us trace the impact of these inflammatory fats and synthetic chemicals on an aging cellular level. As we age, our cellular membranes, the lipid bilayers that surround every single cell in our body and control what goes in and out, naturally become stiffer and more susceptible to oxidative damage. When you consume a diet high in industrial omega-6 fatty acids, your body incorporates these fragile, easily oxidized fats directly into your cell membranes. Once embedded, these omega-6 fats are highly vulnerable to attack by free radicals, a process known as lipid peroxidation. This chemical reaction damages the integrity of the cell membrane, disrupting cellular communication and triggering a cascade of inflammatory signaling molecules throughout your body. This systemic, lipid-driven inflammation is what caused the sudden, intense stiffness and pain in Harrison's hips and ankles. At the same time, we must look at the impact of the heavy metals and persistent organic pollutants, such as polychlorinated biphenyls and dioxins, that are highly concentrated in the fatty tissues of farm-raised fish. Because farmed fish are fed a concentrated diet made from the fat and protein of other fish and land animals, these persistent toxins undergo a process called biomagnification, becoming incredibly concentrated in the flesh of the fish you buy at the grocery store. When you consume these toxins, they enter your digestive tract. In a younger person, the liver produces a robust supply of glutathione, the body's master antioxidant, and possesses highly efficient phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification pathways that can neutralize and excrete these heavy metals and chemicals through the bile and urine. However, as we discuss the aging process specifically, we must acknowledge that after 70, your liver's natural production of glutathione declines by as much as 50%, and the overall efficiency of your phase 2 conjugation pathways, which are responsible for binding toxins so they can be safely removed, is significantly diminished. When Harrison flooded his system with heavy metals and chemical residues from his frequent salmon meals, his sluggish liver could not keep up with the detoxification demand. The heavy metals, particularly mercury, escaped into his general circulation and easily crossed his aging blood-brain barrier. Once in the brain, mercury binds tightly to selenium-dependent enzymes, preventing them from protecting the delicate brain cells from oxidative stress. This results in localized neuroinflammation, synaptic damage, and the death of cognitive pathways, which explained Harrison's profound brain fog and his early signs of cognitive decline. To rescue Harrison from this state of chemical overload and cellular inflammation, we immediately had him remove all farm-raised fish from his diet. We placed him on a highly targeted detoxification protocol to support his liver and help his body gently bind and excrete the accumulated heavy metals. We replaced his farm-raised salmon with clean, wild-caught, low-toxin proteins such as wild-caught sockeye salmon, wild sardines, and grass-fed, pasture-raised meats. Within just 10 weeks of making this vital dietary pivot, Harrison's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. His brain fog completely cleared, allowing his sharp memory to return. His skin rash vanished. His joint pain resolved to the point where he could walk along the beach without a single ache. And his follow-up blood panels showed that his systemic inflammatory markers had dropped back into a perfectly healthy, youthful range. If you want to harness the true brain-boosting and heart-protective benefits of fish without exposing your aging body to toxic heavy metals and inflammatory fats, you must completely avoid all farm-raised species and transition to a highly strategic, wild-caught, low-toxin seafood protocol. First, you must strictly read labels and ask questions at the seafood counter. Never purchase fish labeled as Atlantic salmon, farm-raised, aquaculture, or color-added. Farm-raised salmon is naturally gray, and manufacturers must feed them synthetic chemical dyes, such as astaxanthin derived from petrochemicals, just to turn their flesh pink. Instead, choose only fish labeled as wild-caught, specifically wild Alaskan sockeye salmon, wild pink salmon, or wild-caught cod and halibut. Wild sockeye salmon is one of the cleanest, most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, containing a high concentration of natural anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids and astaxanthin, a powerful antioxidant that protects your brain and cardiovascular system from oxidative damage. Second, you should adopt the SMASH protocol for your seafood choices. SMASH is an acronym for 5 of the cleanest, smallest, and most nutrient-dense wild fish available: sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, and herring. Because these fish are small and sit low on the marine food chain, they have very short lifespans and do not have the time to accumulate dangerous levels of mercury, cadmium, or PCBs in their tissues. Yet they are exceptionally rich in highly bioavailable EPA and DHA, omega-3 fatty acids, calcium, and vitamin D3, making them the ultimate food for supporting brain health and maintaining bone density as you age. To prepare wild-caught fish in a way that preserves its delicate nutrients and protects your aging gut, you must avoid high-heat frying or blackening, which can damage the fragile omega-3 fatty acids and convert them into harmful trans fats. Instead, use gentle, moisture-rich cooking methods such as poaching, baking at a low temperature, or steaming. To bake a wild sockeye salmon fillet at home, preheat your oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Place the salmon skin side down on a baking sheet lined with unbleached parchment paper. Rub the top of the fish with a tablespoon of melted organic grass-fed ghee or unrefined coconut oil, both of which are highly stable fats that protect the delicate fish oils from oxidizing during the cooking process. Season with a pinch of unrefined sea salt and a squeeze of fresh lemon juice. Bake gently for 12 to 15 minutes until the fish is tender and flakes easily with a fork. For optimal timing and dosage, older adults should consume wild-caught, low-toxin fish 2 to 3 times per week, with each portion measuring roughly 4 to 6 ounces. This portion size provides the perfect, highly absorbable dose of clean protein to combat sarcopenia without overloading your digestive system or placing an unnecessary metabolic strain on your kidneys. Avoid consuming fish late in the evening, as the high protein and mineral content requires robust stomach acid and active liver processing, which can interfere with your body's natural circadian rhythms and disrupt your sleep. To maximize the absorption of the anti-inflammatory omega-3 fats and assist your liver in processing any trace impurities, you must implement our key synergy tip. Whenever you eat a meal containing wild-caught fish, pair it with a generous portion of freshly prepared cruciferous vegetables, such as steamed broccoli, Brussels sprouts, or cabbage, and drizzle a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil over the top. The pairing of wild fish with cruciferous vegetables serves a profound synergistic purpose. Cruciferous vegetables contain high levels of a sulfur-rich compound called glucoraphanin. When chewed and digested, this compound converts into sulforaphane, a powerful biomolecule that activates the NRF2 pathway in your cells. This pathway is your body's ultimate defense system, signaling your liver to dramatically ramp up the production of glutathione and activate its phase 2 detoxification enzymes. This localized boost in detoxification capacity ensures that any trace environmental toxins present in the fish are instantly bound and neutralized before they can enter your bloodstream. Meanwhile, the monounsaturated fats in the olive oil further enhance the absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins and antioxidants in both the fish and the vegetables. By combining your gently cooked wild fish with the liver-boosting power of cruciferous vegetables, you create a beautiful metabolic synergy that nourishes your brain, cools systemic inflammation, and allows you to thrive with strength and vitality throughout your golden years. We are journeying deep into the hidden mechanics of human nutrition, exploring how the foods we have been taught to trust can impact our bodies as we age. If you are finding this scientific breakdown eye-opening and you want to continue receiving honest, evidence-based health guidance tailored specifically for your golden years, please take a brief moment right now to click the subscribe button below this video. By subscribing and hitting that like button, you help us reach more seniors just like you who are searching for the truth about longevity, independence, and metabolic vitality. Your support keeps this channel running, and it ensures we can continue to produce these deeply researched, life-changing documentaries. Thank you for being such an active and valued part of our health community. Now, as we move to number 5 on our countdown of healthy foods that can trigger metabolic overload, we must confront a food that is universally celebrated as a pristine, zero-calorie, plant-based alternative to sugar: stevia leaf extract. In almost every modern health food store, medical article, and dietary plan for seniors, stevia is promoted as a miraculous gift from nature, a completely safe, non-glycemic sweetener that allows you to enjoy your favorite beverages, baked goods, and desserts without ever spiking your blood sugar or contributing to weight gain. We are told that by swapping out cane sugar, honey, or artificial chemical sweeteners like aspartame for a few drops of natural stevia, we are taking a massive step forward in protecting our pancreas and avoiding diabetes. But when we look past the marketing and examine what highly processed stevia extracts actually do to your delicate neurological signaling, your hormonal balance, and your gut microbiome as you age, we find a highly disruptive compound that can actually trick your metabolism into storing more fat, increase your cravings for sweets, and cause severe digestive distress. To understand how this seemingly innocent plant-based sweetener can compromise your metabolic health, let us look at the story of 66-year-old Beatrice, a retired bank manager living in Naperville, Illinois. Beatrice had a family history of type 2 diabetes and was highly motivated to keep her own blood sugar levels in a pristine range. After her doctor noted that her fasting insulin was starting to creep upward, Beatrice decided to eliminate all forms of added sugar from her kitchen. In their place, she adopted highly concentrated liquid stevia drops as her primary sweetening agent. She used it every morning in her green tea, added it to her homemade sugar-free oatmeal, and baked sugar-free almond flour treats sweetened exclusively with stevia. Beatrice was convinced she had found the perfect loophole to satisfy her sweet tooth while protecting her metabolism. However, over the course of several months, Beatrice began to experience a series of confusing and highly frustrating symptoms. Despite eating a very low-calorie, sugar-free diet, she began to accumulate a stubborn layer of fat around her lower abdomen. She was plagued by intense, uncontrollable cravings for carbohydrates and sugary foods that peaked late in the evening. Even more troubling, she developed a persistent, uncomfortable bloating and a sluggish bowel transit time that left her feeling heavy and fatigued throughout the day. When she went back to her doctor for a follow-up metabolic panel, she was shocked to discover that her fasting insulin had actually risen, and her hemoglobin A1C, a measure of her 3-month blood sugar average, had edged closer to the diabetic range. Beatrice's frustrating experience is a direct consequence of how the aging brain, gut, and endocrine system process the intense, unnatural sweetness of stevia. To understand the cellular biology behind this phenomenon, we must first look at what stevia actually is. In its raw, natural state, the stevia plant is a sweet green herb native to South America, containing compounds called steviol glycosides, which are up to 300 times sweeter than sucrose. However, the white powders and clear liquids sold on grocery store shelves are not simple plant extracts. They are highly refined, chemically isolated compounds, predominantly riboside A, that have undergone a multi-step industrial extraction process using chemical solvents, bleaches, and stabilizers. When Beatrice consumed a few drops of this highly concentrated stevia extract, the intense sweetness hit the sweet taste receptors on her tongue. These receptors immediately sent a powerful electrical signal to her brain, specifically to the hypothalamus, announcing that a massive wave of high-calorie, energy-dense sugar was about to arrive in her stomach. This sensory mismatch is where the metabolic disaster begins. In anticipation of this incoming sugar, your brain activates the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling your pancreas to prepare for a heavy workload. Your pancreas, expecting a rapid rise in blood glucose, preemptively releases a surge of insulin into your bloodstream. This reaction is known as the cephalic phase insulin response. For a young, highly active person, this small anticipatory surge of insulin is easily managed. But in a 66-year-old body, which is already prone to insulin resistance and slower cellular clearance, This preemptive surge of insulin is highly problematic. Because Beatrice's bloodstream did not actually receive any glucose, since stevia contains 0 calories and 0 actual carbohydrates, the newly released insulin had nothing to bind to. Instead, this excess insulin began to circulate through her bloodstream, dragging her existing stable blood sugar down into an unnaturally low range. This sudden reactive drop in blood glucose signals a state of emergency to your brain, which interprets the situation as a severe energy shortage. To rescue itself from this perceived starvation, your brain releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which signal your liver to dump stored glucose into your blood, while simultaneously triggering intense, uncontrollable cravings for quick-burning carbohydrates and sweets. This explains why Beatrice was constantly plagued by late-night sugar cravings, despite her disciplined, sugar-free lifestyle. Furthermore, this chronic elevation of cortisol, triggered by the constant sensory-metabolic mismatch, performs another highly destructive action in the aging body. Cortisol is a glucocorticoid hormone that actively signals your body to preserve its energy stores. It blocks your muscles from absorbing glucose for fuel and directs your body to store any incoming calories as visceral fat directly around your midsection and abdominal organs. This is precisely why Beatrice began to accumulate stubborn belly fat, even though her overall caloric intake was remarkably low. Her hormonal environment was constantly being signaled by her brain to store fat and conserve energy. At the same time, we must look at how stevia interacts with the aging gut microbiome. While steviol glycosides pass through the stomach and small intestine undigested, they eventually arrive in the large intestine, where they are processed by your gut bacteria. As we age, our gut microbiome naturally undergoes a shift, with a decline in beneficial, short-chain fatty acid-producing bacteria and an increase in opportunistic inflammatory microbes. Recent research in microbiomics has revealed that concentrated steviol glycosides can actively disrupt the delicate balance of this microbial ecosystem. Some species of beneficial gut bacteria, particularly those belonging to the Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium families, are highly sensitive to these concentrated plant compounds. The presence of stevia can inhibit their growth, leading to a state of gut dysbiosis. When these beneficial bacteria are suppressed, opportunistic, gas-producing microbes can thrive, leading to the fermentation of other dietary fibers in your colon. This rapid fermentation produces a high volume of gas, causing the severe, persistent bloating, abdominal distension, and sluggish bowel transit time that Beatrice experienced. Furthermore, a disrupted microbiome compromises the integrity of your gut barrier, allowing metabolic toxins like lipopolysaccharides to leak into your bloodstream, triggering systemic, low-grade inflammation that further exacerbates insulin resistance. To rescue Beatrice from this cycle of hormonal confusion and digestive distress, we immediately had her eliminate all highly refined commercial stevia products from her diet. We transitioned her away from the pursuit of intense artificial sweetness and helped her retrain her palate to appreciate the natural, subtle flavors of whole foods. To support her metabolic recovery, we focused on meals that kept her insulin levels beautifully flat, such as wild-caught proteins, healthy monounsaturated fats, and warm, cooked, low-oxalate vegetables. Within just 8 weeks of removing stevia from her daily routine, Beatrice experienced an incredible transformation. Her late-night cravings for sweets completely vanished, her morning bloating and abdominal discomfort resolved, her energy levels remained stable throughout the entire day, and her stubborn belly fat began to melt away naturally. Most importantly, her follow-up lab work showed that her fasting insulin had dropped back into a perfectly healthy range, and her hemoglobin A1C had returned to a completely safe, non-diabetic level. If you enjoy a touch of sweetness in your daily warm beverages or home-baked treats and want to protect your metabolism, you must learn how to navigate the world of natural sweeteners with extreme precision and respect for your aging physiology. First, you must completely avoid all white, highly processed, chemically isolated stevia powders, and clear liquid drops sold in conventional grocery stores. These products are often cut with bulk fillers like maltodextrin, dextrose, or erythritol, which can cause severe digestive distress and trigger sudden, unwanted spikes in your blood glucose. If you want to use stevia, you must seek out organic, raw green stevia leaf powder. Raw green stevia is simply the dried, ground leaves of the actual plant, completely unaltered by chemical solvents or bleaches. Because it is a whole plant food, it contains all of the natural cofactors, fibers, and minerals that nature packaged with the sweet compounds, allowing your body to recognize and process the substance without triggering the same extreme cephalic phase insulin response. Raw green stevia has a deep green color and a distinct herbal, licorice-like flavor, and because of its potency, you only need a tiny pinch, less than 1/16 of a teaspoon, to sweeten an entire pot of tea. Second, you must practice strict moderation and avoid consuming any sweet-tasting compound, even natural ones, in isolation on an empty stomach. Consuming sweet flavors without the presence of actual digestible calories is what causes the brain-gut mismatch that drives insulin surges and cortisol release. If you are going to use a tiny pinch of raw green stevia leaf powder to sweeten your morning warm herbal tea, make sure you consume that tea alongside a protein and fat-rich breakfast, such as a pasture-raised egg omelet cooked in coconut oil with avocado. The presence of actual macronutrients in your stomach signals your brain that real energy has arrived, satisfying the cephalic response and preventing any sudden reactive drops in your blood sugar. Third, for occasional home baking, transition away from concentrated sweeteners and utilize small amounts of whole food sweeteners that provide actual digestible energy alongside beneficial fibers and minerals. One of the best options for the aging body is raw, organic pureed dates or a small amount of pure organic maple syrup. While these options do contain actual sugars, when used in moderation and combined with the healthy fats and proteins of nut flours or seeds, they do not cause the same metabolic confusion as zero-calorie sweeteners. Dates are exceptionally rich in potassium, magnesium, and dietary fiber, which slows down the absorption of the sugars and supports healthy blood pressure levels. For optimal timing and dosage, older adults should limit their use of even raw green stevia leaf powder to no more than 1 or 2 tiny pinches per day, and it should never be consumed late in the evening. Late-night consumption of sweet flavors can disrupt your body's preparation for sleep, as the sweet taste can stimulate the release of neurotransmitters that increase alertness and interfere with the natural production of melatonin. To maximize your metabolic recovery, support your gut microbiome, and protect your pancreas from insulin spikes, you must implement our key synergy tip. Whenever you consume a beverage sweetened with a pinch of raw green stevia leaf powder, stir in a teaspoon of organic cold-pressed black seed oil or a capsule of organic Ceylon cinnamon extract. The pairing of stevia with black seed oil or Ceylon cinnamon serves a profound synergistic purpose. Ceylon cinnamon contains active compounds called polymer type A polyphenols, which have been scientifically shown to mimic the action of insulin, dramatically enhancing the sensitivity of your cellular receptors and allowing your body to clear glucose from your bloodstream with minimal insulin output. Meanwhile, black seed oil is rich in thymoquinone, a powerful antioxidant that has been shown to protect the beta cells of your pancreas from oxidative stress, soothe inflammation in your gut lining, and promote the growth of beneficial short-chain fatty acid-producing gut bacteria. By combining your lightly sweetened beverage with the insulin-sensitizing power of Ceylon cinnamon or the protective benefits of black seed oil, you create a beautiful metabolic synergy that keeps your blood sugar stable, protects your digestive tract, and allows you to enjoy the rich, satisfying flavors of life while maintaining peak health and vitality. If you are starting your morning with a large, creamy bowl of Greek yogurt or pouring pasteurized cow's milk over your breakfast cereal because you believe it is an essential, calcium-rich shield that will keep your bones strong and prevent fractures, You are unknowingly exposing your aging digestive tract to a dense, pasteurized protein structure that can damage your intestinal lining, fuel silent systemic inflammation, and block the absorption of vital bone-building minerals. For decades, dairy products have been marketed as the ultimate nutritional foundation for older adults, heavily promoted by major health organizations as a non-negotiable source of calcium, potassium, and high-quality protein needed to ward off osteoporosis and muscle wasting. We are told that as our bones naturally thin with age, drinking milk and eating yogurt is our primary defense mechanism. But when we analyze what conventional, pasteurized, store-bought dairy actually does to the biology of someone over the age of 60, we discover a highly processed food that can actively disrupt your gut barrier, trigger joint discomfort, and compromise your vascular system. To understand how this daily dairy habit can turn against you as you age, let us examine the story of 78-year-old Eleanor, a retired nurse from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Eleanor was a highly disciplined woman who had spent her life caring for others, and as she entered her late 70s, she became deeply concerned about preserving her mobility and bone density. To ensure she was getting enough calcium, Eleanor began consuming a large container of sweetened, low-fat Greek yogurt every single morning for breakfast, and she drank a glass of skim milk with her dinner. She believed she was doing everything in her power to protect her skeletal system. However, over the course of a year, Eleanor's health began to decline in a highly frustrating manner. Instead of feeling strong and agile, she developed a persistent, deep stiffness in her lower back and hips that made it increasingly difficult to get out of her favorite armchair. She was plagued by chronic, uncomfortable sinus congestion every morning. Her skin became thin and itchy, and she experienced a constant, low-grade abdominal bloating that left her feeling sluggish and fatigued after meals. Most concerningly, a routine bone density scan revealed that her bone mineral density had actually decreased over the past 12 months, and her blood pressure had begun to rise into an unstable range. Eleanor's physical decline is a classic example of what happens when we flood an aging digestive tract with conventional, highly processed dairy products. To understand the science behind this reaction, we must look at how commercial milk is processed before it reaches the grocery store shelf. When raw milk is harvested from industrially raised cows, it undergoes two highly disruptive processes: pasteurization and homogenization. Pasteurization involves heating the milk to extreme temperatures to kill bacteria, but this process also deactivates the naturally occurring enzymes, such as lactase and phosphatase, which are essential for helping your body break down and absorb the dairy's proteins and minerals. Homogenization then forces the milk through microscopic valves at extreme pressure to break up the fat globules so the cream does not separate. This unnatural process creates tiny synthetic fat-protein complexes that can easily bypass the natural digestive filters of your gut. When Eleanor consumed her daily Greek yogurt and skim milk, these pasteurized, homogenized proteins entered her stomach. As we have established, an older stomach naturally produces significantly less hydrochloric acid and pepsin. Without adequate stomach acid, the dense, complex proteins in dairy, predominantly casein, cannot be properly uncoiled and broken down into individual amino acids. Casein is an incredibly tough, sticky protein that, in its undigested state, behaves almost like a biological glue in the human digestive tract. As these large, undigested casein molecules travel from the stomach into the small intestine, they physically coat the delicate hair-like microvilli that line the intestinal wall. This sticky coating creates a physical barrier that prevents your gut cells from absorbing the very nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that are present in your food. Furthermore, because Eleanor's gut lining had naturally thinned with age, these large, undigested casein proteins began to slip through her compromised tight junctions and enter her bloodstream. Once in the blood, the immune system recognizes these foreign proteins as invaders and launches a systemic inflammatory response. Your immune cells release inflammatory cytokines and histamines to neutralize the proteins, which explained Eleanor's chronic morning sinus congestion and her thin, itchy skin. Even more concerning, These circulating immune complexes can deposit themselves directly into the synovial fluid of your joints, causing localized swelling, stiffness, and pain. This was the exact source of Eleanor's persistent lower back and hip stiffness, which she had mistakenly attributed to simple aging. But the most paradoxical aspect of Eleanor's dairy consumption was its impact on her bones. While she was consuming high amounts of calcium on paper, the pasteurization process had altered the structural integrity of the calcium and phosphorus in the milk, rendering them highly insoluble and difficult for her body to utilize. At the same time, the systemic inflammation triggered by the undigested casein proteins created a slightly acidic environment in her tissues. To buffer this inflammation and maintain a strict pH balance in the blood, her body was forced to draw alkaline minerals, specifically calcium and magnesium, out of her bone reservoir and into her bloodstream to be excreted in her urine. This means that Eleanor's high dairy diet was actually accelerating her bone loss, robbing her skeletal system of the very minerals she was trying to replenish. Furthermore, because commercial dairy is highly deficient in the key cofactors needed to manage calcium, the calcium that she did absorb was depositing into her soft tissues, leading to microcalcifications in her arterial walls, which explained why her blood pressure had begun to rise. To rescue Eleanor from this state of systemic inflammation and mineral depletion, we immediately had her eliminate all conventional pasteurized cow's milk, skim milk, and store-bought sweetened yogurts from her diet. We replaced these processed foods with easily digestible, mineral-rich alternatives such as warm bone broth, organic unsweetened coconut yogurt, and small amounts of raw, unpasteurized goat's or sheep's milk cheese. Within just 8 weeks of removing conventional dairy, Eleanor experienced a profound transformation. Her chronic sinus congestion completely cleared. Her morning joint stiffness in her hips and back vanished, allowing her to stand up and move with effortless agility. Her abdominal bloating resolved, and her blood pressure returned to a beautiful, stable range. Most importantly, her follow-up bone density markers stabilized, indicating that her bones were finally holding on to their vital minerals. If you want to support your bone health and maintain strong muscles as you age, you must transition away from conventional pasteurized cow's dairy and adopt a highly strategic, age-appropriate approach to mineral absorption and protein digestion. First, you must completely avoid all pasteurized, homogenized, low-fat or skim milk products, as well as sweetened commercial yogurts. Low-fat and skim varieties are particularly harmful because the removal of the natural milk fat strips away the fat-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin A and vitamin D, that are absolutely essential for calcium absorption. Instead, if you choose to consume dairy, seek out raw, unpasteurized, full-fat milk or cheese sourced from pasture-raised goats or sheep, or from specific heritage breeds of cows known as A2 cows. Goats and sheep produce milk that contains A2 beta-casein, a protein structure that is significantly smaller and more easily broken down by the human digestive tract than the highly inflammatory A1 beta-casein found in standard Holstein cows. Raw, unpasteurized dairy retains all of its natural active enzymes, including lactase, which helps your body easily digest the milk sugars without taxing your pancreas or stomach. Second, if you enjoy yogurt, you must transition to unsweetened, traditional double-strained Greek yogurt or kefir made from raw goat's milk or organic coconut milk. The fermentation process used to make yogurt and kefir is highly beneficial because the active probiotic bacteria consume the lactose sugars and pre-digest the proteins, breaking them down into easily absorbable peptides and amino acids before the food even enters your mouth. This pre-digestion dramatically reduces the workload on your aging pancreas and stomach, preventing the sticky, glue-like buildup of undigested proteins in your small intestine. To prepare a highly therapeutic, bone-supportive yogurt bowl at home, place 4 ounces of unsweetened raw goat's milk kefir or organic coconut yogurt into a bowl. Because the aging digestive system thrives on warmth, remove the yogurt from the refrigerator and let it sit on your counter for 10 to 15 minutes to reach room temperature before consuming it. Cold foods can constrict the blood vessels in your gut, temporarily halting your digestive processes. Top your yogurt with a tablespoon of soaked pumpkin seeds, which are exceptionally rich in highly bioavailable magnesium and zinc, and a handful of wild blueberries for a boost of brain-supporting antioxidants. For optimal timing and dosage, older adults should limit their consumption of even clean, fermented A2 dairy to no more than 4 ounces per day, and it should never be consumed late in the evening. Casein protein is a very slow digesting protein, and consuming it close to bedtime can force your digestive tract to remain highly active throughout the night, disrupting your deep sleep cycles and preventing your liver from performing its natural overnight detoxification processes. Instead, enjoy your fermented dairy as a midday snack or as part of a light, nourishing lunch. To elevate this dairy protocol into a powerful, bone-rebuilding system and protect your arteries from calcification, you must implement our key synergy tip. Whenever you consume your fermented A2 dairy or goat's milk kefir, pair it with a dietary supplement containing a precise combination of vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and boron. This combination of micronutrients serves an indispensable physiological purpose. As we have established, vitamin D3 acts like an accelerator, dramatically increasing the absorption of calcium from your digestive tract into your blood. However, without vitamin K2, that calcium can float aimlessly through your vascular system, binding to cholesterol and depositing into your arterial walls, causing them to stiffen and age. Vitamin K2 acts as the molecular GPS, activating osteocalcin, a protein that binds the calcium and drives it directly into your bone matrix. Meanwhile, the trace mineral boron plays a vital role in extending the half-life of vitamin D and estrogen in your body, while preventing the excretion of calcium and magnesium in your urine. By combining your easily digestible fermented A2 dairy with the vascular protective power of vitamin D3, K2, and boron, you create a perfect biological synergy that rebuilds your skeletal strength, keeps your arteries soft and pliable, and allows you to maintain vibrant mobility and independence throughout your entire life. If you are snacking on raw, dark green leafy spinach salads every day, or adding giant handfuls of raw baby spinach to your meals because you believe it is an iron-rich, cancer-fighting superfood that will keep your muscles strong and your blood healthy, you are unknowingly delivering a massive, concentrated dose of plant defense chemicals directly into your aging kidneys, joints, and thyroid gland that can accelerate bone loss, trigger chronic body aches, and suppress your metabolic rate. In modern nutritional advice, raw spinach is treated as the undisputed king of leafy greens, a low-calorie, nutrient-dense powerhouse packed with iron, calcium, magnesium, and essential antioxidants that every older adult should consume in abundance. We are told to eat it raw in large salads, wilt it into our morning eggs, or blend it into our daily drinks. But when we look at the molecular reality of raw spinach through the lens of aging physiology, we discover that this green leaf carries some of the highest concentrations of soluble oxalates and goitrogens in the entire plant kingdom, making it one of the most metabolically challenging foods an older adult can consume. To understand how this daily spinach habit can disrupt your health, let us examine the story of 65-year-old Raymond, a retired postmaster from Duluth, Minnesota. Raymond had always been a resilient, hard-working man, but as he transitioned into retirement, his doctor noted that his blood pressure was creeping upward and his thyroid hormones, specifically his thyroid-stimulating hormone, were beginning to show early signs of a sluggish thyroid, a condition known as subclinical hypothyroidism. Determined to reverse these trends naturally, Raymond decided to upgrade his diet by eating a large, raw baby spinach and grilled chicken salad every single day for lunch, believing he was flooding his body with the potassium, magnesium, and active plant compounds needed to heal his thyroid and relax his blood vessels. Initially, Raymond felt proud of his disciplined diet. However, over the course of several months, his health took a highly frustrating turn. He began to experience a profound, constant coldness in his hands and feet. His hair became thin and dry, and he felt a heavy, unshakable fatigue that made even simple tasks feel like monumental chores. More concerningly, he developed a persistent, dull ache in his knees and shoulders, and his digestive system became highly irregular, fluctuating between painful bloating and chronic constipation. When he returned to his physician for a follow-up exam, Raymond was shocked to learn that his thyroid markers had worsened significantly, his kidney filtration rate had dropped, and his blood pressure remained elevated despite his daily raw spinach salads. Raymond's physical decline is a classic illustration of how an aging endocrine and digestive system processes the dense concentration of anti-nutrients found in raw spinach. To understand the cellular biology at play, we must first look at the role of oxalates and goitrogens in plant defense. Because plants cannot run away from predators, they utilize chemical warfare to deter animals and insects from eating them. Spinach is exceptionally rich in these compounds. When Raymond consumed a large bowl of raw spinach every day, his low-acid stomach could not break down the tough cellulose walls of the raw leaves. This allowed the water-soluble oxalates to be released in their most highly bioavailable form in his small intestine. Because the aging gut lining is naturally thinner and more permeable, these soluble oxalates easily passed through his intestinal wall and entered his bloodstream. Once in the bloodstream, these oxalates immediately bind to minerals, particularly calcium and magnesium. This chemical reaction forms insoluble calcium oxalate crystals. As we have established, these microscopic, razor-sharp crystals travel through the blood. In a 65-year-old body, where kidney filtration naturally declines, these sharp crystals accumulate in the renal tubules, causing microinflammation and scarring, which explained Raymond's declining kidney filtration rate. Furthermore, these crystals deposit into joint spaces, acting like physical sandpapers inside the joints, which triggered the persistent, dull aches Raymond felt in his knees and shoulders. Even worse, by binding to calcium and magnesium in the blood, the raw spinach was actively depriving Raymond's cardiovascular system of the very minerals required to relax his arterial walls, keeping his blood pressure elevated. But the impact of raw spinach on Raymond's thyroid gland was even more devastating. Spinach contains naturally occurring goitrogens, which are compounds that interfere with the normal function of the thyroid gland. To understand how this works, think of your thyroid as a small, butterfly-shaped factory in your neck that produces thyroid hormones, primarily thyroxine or T4. To manufacture these hormones, your thyroid gland must absorb iodine from your bloodstream and attach it to an amino acid called tyrosine. When Raymond consumed large quantities of raw spinach daily, the goitrogens entered his bloodstream and traveled to his thyroid gland. Once there, these compounds actively blocked the thyroid's iodine receptors, preventing the gland from absorbing the essential iodine needed to manufacture thyroid hormones. This molecular blockade has a devastating effect on your metabolism. Without adequate iodine, your thyroid cannot produce enough T4 and T3 hormones. Your brain, sensing this hormone shortage, releases more thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH, to scream at the thyroid to work harder, which explained Raymond's worsening hypothyroid markers. Because thyroid hormones regulate the metabolic rate of every single cell in your body, a drop in these hormones causes your entire system to slow down. Your body can no longer produce adequate heat, leading to Raymond's constant coldness in his hands and feet. Your hair follicles lose their regenerative capacity, leading to thinning and dryness. Most importantly, your digestive tract loses its muscular motility, causing the chronic constipation and heavy bloating that Raymond experienced. To rescue Raymond from this state of metabolic and thyroid suppression, we immediately had him stop consuming all raw spinach, Swiss chard, and beet greens. We replaced his raw salads with warm, thoroughly cooked, low oxalate vegetables such as steamed zucchini, boiled asparagus, and roasted squash. And we introduced easily digestible, mineral-rich proteins to support his thyroid recovery. Within just 8 weeks of removing raw spinach from his daily routine, Raymond's transformation was remarkable. His body temperature normalized. His hands and feet became warm again. His energy levels returned to their youthful baseline. His joint pain completely vanished, and his bowel movements became regular and effortless. Most importantly, his follow-up thyroid panel showed that his TSH had returned to a perfectly healthy range, and his kidney filtration markers had stabilized. If you enjoy the earthy flavor of spinach and want to harness its beneficial vitamins and minerals without damaging your kidneys, joints, or thyroid, you must completely avoid raw spinach and master the simple, life-changing cooking techniques that systematically neutralize these plant defense chemicals. First, you must never consume raw spinach in salads, smoothies, or juices. Eating spinach raw is a recipe for oxalate overload and goitrogenic suppression. Instead, you must always cook your spinach thoroughly before consuming it. The heat of cooking performs two vital functions. It denatures the heat-sensitive goitrogenic compounds, rendering them completely inactive, and it helps to release the tightly bound minerals from the plant matrix, making them far easier for your aging digestive tract to absorb. Second, the method of cooking is highly important. Do not simply sauté or steam your spinach. Steaming or sautéing retains all of the water-soluble oxalates within the leaves or the pan juices. Instead, the most effective way to reduce the oxalate content of spinach is to boil it. Place your fresh spinach leaves into a pot of rapidly boiling filtered water and let them boil for exactly 2 to 3 minutes. This process allows the water-soluble oxalates to leach out of the spinach leaves and dissolve into the boiling water. Once the boiling is complete, pour the spinach into a colander and discard the cooking water. Do not use this water for soups or sauces, as it is now a concentrated liquid of oxalates. Squeeze the excess water out of the boiled spinach leaves. This simple boiling and draining process has been shown to reduce the soluble oxalate content of spinach by up to 70%, transforming a potential renal hazard into a highly digestible, mineral-safe food. Third, you must practice strict portion control. Even after boiling, cooked spinach still contains a moderate amount of residual oxalates. Older adults should limit their consumption of cooked spinach to no more than 1/2 of a cup once or twice a week. For your daily greens, transition to naturally low oxalate alternatives that do not contain goitrogens, such as romaine lettuce, arugula, watercress, and bok choy. Arugula is a particularly fantastic alternative for seniors, as it is exceptionally low in oxalates, rich in natural nitrates that support healthy blood pressure, and has a bright, peppery flavor that stimulates the natural production of digestive enzymes. For optimal timing and dosage, consume your small portion of boiled, drained spinach during your midday meal rather than late in the evening. As we have established, the processing of minerals and residual plant compounds requires active liver filtration and robust kidney function, both of which naturally slow down as your body prepares for rest. By consuming your greens at lunch, you allow your active daytime circulation and metabolic rate to easily process and excrete any remaining oxalates. To elevate this cooked spinach into a powerful bone-building and thyroid-supportive food, you must implement our key synergy tip. Whenever you consume your boiled and drained spinach, toss it with a tablespoon of organic grass-fed butter or extra virgin olive oil, and pair it with a generous squeeze of fresh raw lemon juice or a calcium-rich food like a small slice of aged raw goat's milk cheese. The addition of healthy fats and calcium serves a profound physiological purpose. The monounsaturated fats in olive oil or the short-chain fatty acids in grass-fed butter dramatically enhance the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, specifically vitamin A and vitamin K, which are highly abundant in spinach. Meanwhile, the calcium in the goat's milk cheese or the citric acid in the lemon juice acts as a powerful molecular shield. When you consume calcium alongside a food containing residual oxalates, the calcium binds to the oxalates directly inside your digestive tract, forming insoluble calcium oxalate complexes before they can be absorbed into your bloodstream. These large complexes are simply carried out of your body in your stool, preventing them from ever entering your blood, straining your kidneys, or depositing into your joints. By combining your thoroughly boiled spinach with healthy fats, lemon juice, and a source of digestive calcium, you create a perfect biological synergy that protects your kidneys, preserves your thyroid health, and allows you to enjoy the rich, nourishing benefits of leafy greens with absolute confidence and safety. If you are replacing your traditional cooking oils with large amounts of industrial seed oils like canola oil, soybean oil, or grapeseed oil, or consuming prepackaged health food snacks made with these fats because you believe they are a cholesterol-free, heart-healthy way to protect your arteries, you are unknowingly delivering a highly unstable, oxidized load of omega-6 fatty acids directly into your aging cellular membranes that can trigger chronic vascular inflammation, damage your mitochondria, and accelerate the stiffening of your cardiovascular system. For decades, the public has been bombarded with marketing campaigns and dietary guidelines asserting that liquid vegetable oils are the ultimate choice for heart health, far superior to natural saturated fats like butter or tallow. We are told that these oils can lower our cholesterol and keep our blood flowing smoothly. But when we look at the molecular structure of industrial seed oils and analyze how they behave inside the highly sensitive, aging vascular system of someone in their 70s, we discover a class of highly processed, chemically altered fats that can act as a silent, powerful driver of cellular degeneration and arterial aging. To understand how these highly promoted oils can disrupt your health as you age, let us examine the story of 75-year-old Walter, a retired civil engineer from Mobile, Alabama. Walter was a disciplined man who took his health seriously, and after his doctor noted that his blood pressure was rising and his carotid artery ultrasound showed early signs of plaque accumulation, Walter resolved to clean up his diet. He threw away the butter and lard he had used for years and replaced them entirely with canola oil and grapeseed oil for all of his home cooking. He also began purchasing baked veggie chips and organic whole grain crackers that were proudly labeled as being made with heart-healthy canola oil. Walter believed he was doing his cardiovascular system a massive favor. Yet, over the course of 10 months, his health took a highly concerning turn. He began to experience a persistent daily brain fog that made it difficult to focus on his technical hobbies. He noticed that his skin became unusually thin, papery, and slow to heal from minor scratches, and he was plagued by a constant dull ache in his calves and thighs whenever he walked up a flight of stairs, a condition known as intermittent claudication. Most alarmingly, when he returned to his cardiologist for a follow-up visit, his blood pressure had climbed even higher, his markers for systemic lipid peroxidation had soared, and his arterial plaque had progressed significantly, despite his complete elimination of animal fats. Walter's rapid vascular decline is a classic illustration of how an aging cardiovascular system and cellular membrane structure interact with the highly unstable polyunsaturated fatty acids found in industrial seed oils. To understand the science behind this reaction, we must first look at how these oils are manufactured. Unlike olive oil or butter, which can be extracted through simple mechanical pressing or churning, industrial seed oils must be extracted from seeds like rape seeds, soybeans, or grape seeds using high heat, high pressure, and chemical solvents like hexane. Because these seed oils are naturally rich in polyunsaturated fatty acids, which contain multiple highly fragile double chemical bonds, this intense heat and chemical processing causes the oils to oxidize before they even leave the factory. To mask the rancid smell and taste caused by this oxidation, manufacturers must deodorize and bleach the oils, resulting in a clear, odorless liquid that is packed with highly destructive lipid peroxides and trans fatty acid byproducts. When Walter consumed foods cooked in canola or grapeseed oil, these oxidized fats entered his digestive tract. As we have established, as we age, our liver's production of bile and our pancreas's secretion of lipase enzymes naturally decline, making the digestion of fats slower and more taxing. But the real damage begins once these unstable fatty acids are absorbed into the bloodstream. Because your body needs fats to rebuild and maintain the lipid membranes of every single cell, it has no choice but to use the fats you provide in your diet. When Walter flooded his system with unstable oxidized omega-6 fats, his body incorporated these fragile molecules directly into his cellular membranes, particularly the membranes of his endothelial cells, the delicate single layer of cells that line the inside of his blood vessels. Once these oxidized fats are embedded in your arterial lining, they behave like dry tinder waiting for a spark. Because they possess fragile double chemical bonds, they are highly susceptible to being attacked by free radicals in your blood, a process known as lipid peroxidation. This reaction creates a destructive chain event, damaging the delicate membrane of the endothelial cells and triggering a localized inflammatory response. Your immune system, recognizing this damage, dispatches white blood cells called macrophages to clean up the area. These macrophages swallow the oxidized fats, transforming into bloated, highly inflammatory foam cells. These foam cells embed themselves directly into the arterial wall, forming the foundation of arterial plaque, which explained why Walter's carotid artery plaque progressed so rapidly despite his low cholesterol diet. But the cellular damage does not stop at the blood vessels. These oxidized fats also enter your mitochondria, the tiny energy-producing powerhouses inside your cells. Your mitochondria rely on highly stable fats to maintain their delicate inner membranes, which are responsible for generating cellular energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. When fragile oxidized omega-6 fats are incorporated into the mitochondrial membranes, they disrupt the flow of electrons, causing the mitochondria to leak free radicals and produce significantly less ATP. In an older adult, this mitochondrial dysfunction leads to a rapid decline in cellular energy, which explained Walter's persistent brain fog and his chronic muscle fatigue and calf pain when walking. Furthermore, because the collagen fibers in his skin and blood vessels were being constantly bombarded by the free radicals generated by these oxidized fats, his vascular system lost its natural elasticity, causing his arteries to stiffen and his blood pressure to climb into an unstable range, while his skin became thin, papery, and slow to heal. To rescue Walter from this state of cellular oxidation and vascular decline, we immediately had him throw away all canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, and grapeseed oil, as well as any processed foods containing these ingredients. We replaced these industrial fats with highly stable, natural cooking fats that have been consumed by humans for thousands of years, such as organic grass-fed butter, ghee, extra virgin coconut oil, and cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil. Within just 8 weeks of removing industrial seed oils from his daily routine, Walter experienced a complete turnaround. His brain fog lifted entirely, his calf and thigh pain vanished, allowing him to walk and climb stairs with ease. His skin regained its natural thickness and healing capacity, and his blood pressure returned to a beautiful, stable range. Most importantly, his follow-up cardiovascular markers showed that the rapid progression of his arterial plaque had halted and his systemic lipid oxidation levels had plummeted. If you want to protect your cardiovascular system, support your brain health, and maintain strong, energy-rich cellular membranes as you age, you must completely eliminate all industrial seed oils from your kitchen and transition to highly stable, nutrient-dense natural fats. First, you must conduct a thorough audit of your pantry. Throw away any bottles of canola, soybean, corn, safflower, sunflower, cottonseed, or grapeseed oil. These are highly unstable fats that have no place in an aging body. Furthermore, you must become a diligent label reader. Avoid purchasing any processed snacks, dressings, marinades, or prepackaged meals that list these oils in their ingredients. Instead, stock your kitchen with 3 highly stable, healthy fats: extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, and grass-fed ghee or butter. Ghee, which is clarified butter, is an exceptionally fantastic option for older adults because the milk solids and lactose have been completely strained out, leaving behind a pure, highly stable fat with a very high smoke point, making it perfect for safe, high-heat cooking without any risk of oxidation. Second, you must understand the rules of cooking temperature. While cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil is incredibly rich in heart-healthy monounsaturated oleic acid and protective polyphenols, it is relatively sensitive to high heat. If you heat olive oil past its smoke point, roughly 375 degrees Fahrenheit, the heat can damage the delicate antioxidants and oxidize the fats. Therefore, you should save your extra virgin olive oil for low-heat sautéing, drizzling over warm cooked vegetables, or using in cold dressings. For medium to high-heat cooking, baking, or roasting, always use highly stable saturated fats like grass-fed ghee, tallow, or unrefined coconut oil, or choose cold-pressed avocado oil, which has a natural smoke point of over 500 degrees Fahrenheit and remains highly stable under heat. To prepare a highly therapeutic, heart-healthy meal at home, place a wild-caught cod or halibut fillet on a baking sheet. Drizzle a tablespoon of melted grass-fed ghee or avocado oil over the fish to protect the delicate proteins from heat damage during cooking. Season with a pinch of unrefined sea salt and your favorite organic herbs. Bake gently at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 to 15 minutes. Once the fish is cooked, remove it from the oven and drizzle a tablespoon of high-quality, raw, cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil over the top before serving. This dual-fat approach ensures that you cook with a highly stable fat while consuming the delicate, unheated antioxidants of the olive oil in their most active, bioavailable state. For optimal timing and dosage, older adults should aim to consume roughly 2 to 3 tablespoons of healthy, natural fats per day. Because fats require active bile production from your gallbladder and liver processing, avoid consuming large amounts of fat late in the evening or close to bedtime. Eating a heavy, fat-rich meal late at night can cause acid reflux, disrupt your stomach's natural nighttime rest, and interfere with your deep sleep cycles. Instead, consume your primary healthy fats during breakfast and lunch when your digestive fire is strongest and your active daytime circulation can easily utilize these clean-burning fats for immediate energy. To maximize the cardiovascular benefits of your healthy fats and protect your arterial walls from lipid peroxidation, you must implement our key synergy tip. Whenever you consume a meal containing healthy fats like olive oil or grass-fed ghee, pair it with a dietary supplement containing a high-quality, fat-soluble antioxidant complex of coenzyme Q10, specifically in its active form called ubiquinol, and natural mixed tocopherols of vitamin E. The pairing of healthy fats with ubiquinol and vitamin E serves an indispensable vascular protective purpose. Ubiquinol is a vital cofactor that your mitochondria require to produce ATP, and it acts as one of the most powerful fat-soluble antioxidants in your blood, specifically targeting and neutralizing free radicals before they can attack the fats in your cell membranes. Meanwhile, vitamin E works in perfect hand-in-hand harmony with ubiquinol, inserting itself directly into your LDL cholesterol particles and your endothelial cell membranes to act as a physical shield against lipid peroxidation. Because ubiquinol and vitamin E are fat-soluble, they require the presence of dietary fats like olive oil or ghee to be properly absorbed in your small intestine. By combining your clean, stable cooking fats with the powerful antioxidant protection of ubiquinol and vitamin E, you create a beautiful cardiovascular synergy that keeps your cell membranes strong, your mitochondria firing with youthful energy, and your blood vessels beautifully soft, pliable, and resilient throughout your entire life. If you are starting your morning with a large, warm glass of sweetened soy milk, snacking on edamame, or consuming processed soy-based meat alternatives multiple times a week because you believe it is a low-fat, cholesterol-free superfood that will protect your heart, preserve your bones, and ease the symptoms of aging, you are unknowingly delivering a massive disruptive payload of highly concentrated phytoestrogens and thyroid-suppressing goitrogens directly into your endocrine system that can stall your metabolic rate, trigger rapid muscle wasting, and accelerate cognitive decline. In modern nutritional advice, soy has been elevated to the absolute peak of healthy plant-based proteins, heavily promoted to seniors as a heart-healthy alternative to animal products that can lower cholesterol, prevent arterial stiffness, and support bone mineral density without any of the risks of saturated fat. We are told that soy is the secret to the longevity of Eastern populations and that we should integrate it into our daily meals through processed milks, burgers, and snacks. But when we look at the molecular structure of modern unfermented soy products and analyze how they interact with the fragile hormonal pathways, cellular receptors, and digestive capacities of adults in their 70s and 80s, we discover a food that can actively disrupt your thyroid gland, promote systemic inflammation, and interfere with your body's ability to absorb vital amino acids. To understand how this highly celebrated health food can silently compromise your well-being as you age, let us examine the story of 76-year-old Arthur, a retired chemistry professor from Boston, Massachusetts. Arthur was a deeply analytical man who had spent his career studying molecular structures. But when he retired, he found himself struggling with a slow, progressive decline in his physical strength, an unshakable sense of mental fatigue, and a stubborn accumulation of body fat around his chest and abdomen. After reading several articles suggesting that animal proteins were highly inflammatory and that soy-based proteins were the key to a long, active life, Arthur decided to make a complete dietary shift. He eliminated dairy, eggs, and poultry, and replaced them with soy-based alternatives. He drank a large glass of soy milk every morning, ate soy protein-based veggie burgers for lunch, and snacked on steamed edamame in the afternoon. Arthur believed he was applying a highly logical, scientific approach to his nutrition. Yet, over the course of a year, his physical and mental health did not improve. They deteriorated in a highly alarming manner. His muscle mass, which had already begun to naturally decline, began to waste away at an accelerated rate, leaving his arms and legs thin and weak. He developed a profound, heavy brain fog that made it difficult to engage in his beloved research or follow complex conversations. He felt constantly cold, even during warm summer days, and his skin became dry, thick, and itchy. When his annual physical exams came back, his thyroid-stimulating hormone had skyrocketed, indicating severe thyroid suppression. His testosterone levels had plummeted to an unnaturally low range, and his markers for systemic inflammation, specifically high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, had risen significantly. Arthur's rapid decline is a powerful illustration of the molecular mechanisms at play when an aging endocrine and metabolic system is flooded with unfermented soy products. To understand the science behind this reaction, we must first look at the unique chemical compounds concentrated within the soybean. Soy is exceptionally rich in a class of plant defense chemicals known as isoflavones, primarily genistein and daidzein. Because of their molecular structure, these isoflavones behave as phytoestrogens, meaning they are chemically similar enough to human estrogen to bind directly to estrogen receptors on your cells. When a young, healthy body with robust hormonal regulation consumes moderate amounts of soy, the endocrine system can easily maintain a state of balance. But as we age, our natural hormone production undergoes a dramatic, delicate shift. In older men, testosterone levels naturally decline, while estrogen levels can relatively rise. When Arthur consumed large amounts of soy milk and soy protein isolates daily, the massive influx of genistein and daidzein flooded his circulation. These phytoestrogens bound to his cellular estrogen receptors, sending a false signal to his pituitary gland that his body had an excess of sex hormones. In response, his brain signaled his testes to shut down the production of what little natural testosterone he was still producing. This sudden, severe drop in testosterone is what triggered the rapid wasting of his muscle tissue, a condition known as accelerated sarcopenia, and caused the soft, feminine fat deposition around his chest and abdomen. At the same time, we must look at how these soy isoflavones interact with the aging thyroid gland. As we have established, the thyroid is the master regulator of your metabolic rate, dictating how quickly your cells convert nutrients into energy, maintain body heat, and repair damaged tissues. Soy isoflavones are incredibly potent goitrogens that actively inhibit an enzyme called thyroid peroxidase. This enzyme is the key chemical catalyst responsible for binding iodine to the amino acid tyrosine to synthesize active thyroid hormones, T4 and T3. When Arthur consumed soy multiple times a day, the genistein and daidzein blocked this enzyme, completely halting his thyroid's ability to produce hormones. This state of thyroid suppression has a devastating systemic impact on an older adult. Without adequate T4 and T3 hormones, every single cellular process in Arthur's body slowed to a crawl. His body could no longer generate adequate cellular heat, explaining his constant coldness. His skin cells lost their ability to rapidly regenerate, leading to dryness and itching. Most importantly, the neurons in his brain suffered a significant drop in their metabolic energy, leading to the profound, heavy brain fog and cognitive fatigue that made him feel as though his mind were fading. This metabolic slowdown also meant that his liver became sluggish, reducing its ability to clear cholesterol and toxins from his blood, which further drove up his systemic inflammatory markers. But the endocrine disruption is only one facet of the soy trap. We must also address the impact of soy's highly complex protein structure on an older digestive tract. Unfermented soy contains extremely high levels of trypsin inhibitors and phytic acid. As we have established, trypsin is the primary pancreatic enzyme required to break down dietary proteins into the individual bioavailable amino acids your body needs to rebuild muscle, support immune function, and manufacture vital neurotransmitters. When Arthur consumed processed soy protein isolates in his veggie burgers, the trypsin inhibitors bound to his pancreatic enzymes, deactivating them and rendering the soy protein completely indigestible. This lack of protein digestion had a double-fold consequence. First, it directly starved Arthur's muscles of the vital branch-chain amino acids, such as leucine, required to combat anabolic resistance and maintain his physical strength. Second, the undigested complex soy proteins traveled down into his lower digestive tract, where they began to ferment, producing toxic gaseous byproducts that irritated his intestinal lining, increased gut permeability, and fueled a state of chronic, low-grade systemic inflammation. Furthermore, the high concentration of phytic acid in the soy milk bound tightly to the essential minerals in his digestive tract: calcium, magnesium, zinc, and iron, carrying them out of his body unabsorbed and further robbing his skeletal and immune systems of the foundational blocks they needed to remain strong and resilient. To rescue Arthur from this state of severe endocrine and muscular decline, we immediately had him remove all unfermented soy products, including soy milk, soy protein isolates, edamame, and processed veggie meats from his diet. We transitioned him to a highly bioavailable, mineral-dense diet designed to support his thyroid and rebuild his muscles, consisting of grass-fed meats, wild-caught fish, raw organic egg yolks, and warm, cooked, low-oxalate vegetables. Within just 10 weeks of stopping his daily soy consumption, Arthur's physical and mental recovery was astonishing. His brain fog completely lifted, allowing him to return to his complex academic hobbies, his muscle wasting halted, and his physical strength returned to the point where he could comfortably lift weights and walk miles with ease. His body temperature normalized, his skin regained its healthy, hydrated texture, and his follow-up lab work showed that his thyroid-stimulating hormone had returned to a perfectly healthy range, while his natural testosterone levels recovered and his systemic inflammation dropped back to a minimal level. If you want to support your health and longevity without exposing your aging endocrine system to the hazards of unfermented soy, you must completely avoid processed modern soy products and understand the critical life-altering difference between unfermented and traditionally fermented soy. In ancestral Eastern cultures, soy was never consumed in its raw, unfermented, or highly processed state. Traditional populations understood that soy was naturally toxic and required a lengthy, complex fermentation process to make it safe for human consumption. During the fermentation process, which can take anywhere from several months to several years, beneficial bacteria and yeasts slowly consume the sugars, pre-digest the complex proteins, and systematically break down the harmful phytic acid, goitrogens, and trypsin inhibitors. This biological transformation completely neutralizes the soy's chemical defenses, leaving behind a highly digestible, nutrient-dense food that supports, rather than suppresses, your aging body. The only soy products that are safe and therapeutic for older adults to consume are traditionally fermented varieties: organic tempeh, organic natto, and traditional aged organic miso. Natto is an exceptionally powerful superfood for seniors. It is made by fermenting whole soybeans with a specific bacterium called Bacillus subtilis. This fermentation process produces a unique, highly potent enzyme called nattokinase, as well as an incredibly high concentration of vitamin K2 in its most bioavailable form, MK7. Nattokinase has been scientifically shown to support healthy cardiovascular function by actively breaking down fibrin, a protein involved in blood clot formation, helping to keep your blood flowing smoothly and reducing the risk of stroke and arterial stiffness. Meanwhile, the abundant vitamin K2 in natto acts as the vital molecular GPS we have discussed, directing calcium away from your blood vessels and driving it straight into your bones to maintain maximum skeletal strength. To prepare a highly therapeutic, heart-healthy, and bone-building meal at home, purchase a package of organic, non-GMO tempeh or natto. Tempeh is a fermented soy cake with a firm, nutty texture that is incredibly easy to digest. Cut the tempeh into thin slices. To make it even easier on your aging digestive tract and enhance its flavor, steam the slices for 10 minutes first. This gentle steaming process softens the fibers and ensures any residual plant defense chemicals are completely deactivated. Next, sauté the steamed tempeh slices in a pan with a tablespoon of highly stable grass-fed ghee or unrefined coconut oil until they are lightly golden and crispy on both sides. Season with a small splash of organic, fermented, gluten-free tamari soy sauce and a pinch of ground ginger. This preparation provides a highly digestible, clean source of plant protein that supports your muscles without causing any pancreatic fatigue or hormonal disruption. For optimal timing and dosage, older adults should consume small, moderate portions of traditionally fermented soy, such as 2 to 3 ounces of tempeh or a tablespoon of organic miso paste 2 to 3 times per week. Because natto has an incredibly strong, pungent flavor and a sticky, viscous texture, you only need to consume 1 or 2 tablespoons per day to receive its full, therapeutic dose of nattokinase and vitamin K2. Avoid consuming even fermented soy late in the evening, as the high concentration of active enzymes and amino acids can stimulate your digestive system and liver, potentially interfering with your body's natural wind-down process before sleep. Instead, enjoy your fermented soy during your midday meal when your body is active and fully prepared to utilize the active nutrients. To elevate this fermented soy protocol into a powerful shield against arterial calcification and bone loss, you must implement our key synergy tip. Whenever you consume traditionally fermented soy like tempeh or natto, pair it with a fat-soluble vitamin D3 supplement and a generous portion of raw fermented vegetables, such as organic sauerkraut or kimchi. The pairing of fermented soy with vitamin D3 and fermented vegetables serves a profound synergistic purpose. As we have established, the vitamin K2 naturally abundant in fermented soy requires the presence of vitamin D3 to coordinate the proper management of calcium in your body. Vitamin D3 increases the absorption of calcium into your blood, while the vitamin K2 from the natto or tempeh activates the proteins that bind that calcium and deposit it into your bones. Meanwhile, the active probiotics and organic acids in sauerkraut or kimchi work in perfect harmony with the pre-digested proteins of the fermented soy, providing a massive boost of beneficial bacteria to your aging gut microbiome. This microbial support strengthens your gut barrier, reduces systemic inflammation, and enhances the overall absorption of the vital minerals and vitamins in your meal. By combining your gently steamed, sautéed tempeh or natto with vitamin D3 and raw sauerkraut, you create a beautiful metabolic and skeletal synergy that protects your heart, preserves your bone density, and allows you to maintain peak physical and cognitive vitality as you age. As we bring this video to a close, I want you to take a deep, slow breath and reflect on everything we have uncovered today. It is incredibly easy to feel overwhelmed, frustrated, or even a bit misled by the endless cycle of modern health trends and dietary advice. You may have spent years or even decades trying your absolute best to eat clean, loading your plate with raw greens, blending massive smoothies, or avoiding traditional foods in favor of highly processed alternatives, only to find yourself struggling with chronic joint stiffness, fading energy, brain fog, or creeping blood pressure. Please hear me when I say this. Do not be discouraged and do not blame yourself. The journey of aging is not a disease, nor is it a sign of failure. It is simply a natural, beautiful transition that requires a shift in how we care for our internal machinery. Your body is not broken. It is simply asking you to listen to its changing needs, to respect its boundaries, and to nourish it with the wisdom of traditional preparation, structural balance, and age-appropriate nutrition. It is never, ever too late to take back control of your health, to reclaim your physical independence, and to elevate your quality of life. Whether you are 60, 70, 80, or beyond, your cells possess an incredible God-given capacity to heal, regenerate, and adapt when you give them the right environment and the proper clean-burning fuel. Imagine waking up every single morning with a deep sense of physical ease, standing up from your bed without a single ache in your knees or back, and feeling a bright, sharp clarity in your mind that carries you effortlessly through your day. Imagine having the strength, stamina, and vibrant energy to tend to your garden, travel to new places, play with your grandchildren, and live your life completely on your own terms, free from the shadow of chronic food-induced fatigue and metabolic overload. This level of vitality is not a distant, unreachable dream. It is a practical, highly achievable reality that begins with the very next meal you choose to put on your plate. By stepping away from the raw, unprocessed, and highly chemicalized health trends of the modern world and returning to the time-tested ancestral wisdom of warm, thoroughly cooked, fermented, and properly prepared whole foods, you are giving your aging body the ultimate gift of respect and love. You are protecting your kidneys, supporting your liver, easing the burden on your pancreas, and allowing your heart and blood vessels to remain soft, pliable, and strong for the long, beautiful road ahead. If you want to continue this journey of health discovery with us, learning the real evidence-based science of longevity and vitality, please click the subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications so you never miss a single episode. We are here to walk alongside you, supporting you with the honest, clinical guidance you need to thrive in your golden years. Before you go, I want to ask you a specific question for the comments section. What is the single biggest change you are going to make to your diet today after watching this video? Are you going to swap your raw spinach for cooked greens, throw away your industrial seed oils, or start soaking your nuts and seeds before snacking? Please share your thoughts, your struggles, and your triumphs in the comments below. I read every single one, and I cannot wait to hear your story. Thank you for watching. Stay strong, stay healthy, and I will see you in the next video.